All right, welcome to Wise Up on Air. Happy 2026, off to a wild start. We're going to be talking about interactive audio and all of its flavors. I'm Damian Kaspauer, product manager here at Audiokinetic, and let's get this show on the road. We're here to talk about Europa Universalis. I got some guests waiting in the wings. But before we get to that, let's talk about news. Audiokinetic celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. We've been doing some fun things over the past months to recognize and check in about Audiokinetic. Last week, we hosted a Wise Expo online where we went deep on the 25.1 features, as well as hosted a roundtable with several of the leads at Audiokinetic who've been working on Wise for years. So dig back into that. It was a great conversation about Wise past, present, and future with some of the folks who have been contributing to the development of Wise that you know and love. We also premiered Wise at a Glance, a product video for Wise 25.1 created by Simon Meng in China. It's got that translated in both English and Chinese, Japanese coming soon. And it just provides a really nice high-level overview of features in the box. Thanks, Simon, for putting that together. And speaking of what's in the box, dig deeper into our What's New 25.1. We've got a ton of stuff there that can put you on the path to flexing those new features. And wow, just a ton of great stuff in the box. And we have been out there talking about it on our Wise Up on Air hands-on live streams. Everything from a full feature as part of our beta walkthrough, deep dive into the media pool and similar sound search feature with some of the developers here at Audiokinetic and our collaborators at Sony AI on the similar sound search feature. We went deep into sidechaining, multiband dynamics, that new parametric EQ graph, all of the cool things that are in the box to help you pull together your mix. And then there was acoustics. You've got that new dual shelf filter. We've got the new Game Object 3D Viewer settings toolbar. And of course, our integrations with Unreal and Unity, tying together the asset management strategy across Unreal and Unity with packaging and addressables, as well as bringing our dynamic dialogue feature, not just for voice, to Unreal as part of code and blueprints. So dig back into those live streams where we go deep, and hope you are having fun out there with Wise. If you want to dig even deeper, we've got videos out there about the story of Wise as part of our 25-year anniversary celebration, as well as the story of Audiokinetic. And then queue up for Mentor's Advice. We've been out in the community asking folks about game audio and what they love about this craft and trade. So a ton of great insights from community members out there. Speaking of the community, we will be out in the community on the ground in San Francisco at GDC in a few weeks. 17 business days until that happens. So it's happening fast, coming up quickly, and we can't wait to see you there. We'll be back at the Metreon with 2 days of presentations on the Wednesday and Thursday of the conference, and you'll want to keep them tuned, get registered so that we can update you as that schedule comes into focus. I can already tell you there are some that you won't want to miss, and the sound system in this theater is appropriate for what we are going to be showing off. It's so great to hear Wwise and the games that people are making in full fidelity in a giant theater like that. That's a great place to hang out. And if you like karaoke, like I like karaoke, you'll want to get registered for the Tuesday night audio community karaoke that is sponsored by Audiokinetic. We love it here, and we love to empower the community to come together and sing during a night at the Game Developers Conference. So please come out. We need all of your voices to, surface the positivity in this world when we can. Speaking of positivity, I want to shine the spotlight on a few folks out there in the Wwise community doing cool things. First up, we've got the Wwise Godot integration setup. Any folks out there have jumped into Godot yet? Well, our good friend Guido Fazzito has pulled together a Wwise Godot integration setup for you so that you can jump in and get started. An easy walkthrough that will get you up to speed quickly with Wwise and Godot and our community integration. Thanks, Guido. Super cool stuff. Meanwhile, Reese Anthony has put together and is metering out several shorts on features of Wwise 2025.1. Just incredibly succinct overviews, everything from basics of external sources to, tiny features like the expandable notes field in our new property editor, something that the community has asked about. We want more room to be able to put these ideas, share across the team. What's the status of this object? So thanks, Reese, for pulling together these great little shorts, digging into Wwise 25.1. Meanwhile, we've got Chris Ron put together a fantastic implementation showcase that unpacks a ton of acoustic features and functionality in a really entertaining and great sounding way, giving visuals stacked up against that. And then Ben Kling, this one just blew minds at Audiokinetic. We've got a video of a Wwise Arduino implementation. This was for a Halloween themed decoration using Arduino to trigger sounds, lights, etc., all inside of Wwise with the Unity engine. So cool overview, like LBE for you and me. It's like amazing what people can do when they reach for these ideas and have the tools that they need to pull it off. Which lands me right squarely in the zone to introduce our guest today to talk more about metering madness. Welcome to Wwise Up on Air. Good to see you, Mattias and Franco. Hey.
Hey, thanks for having us. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Cool. The studio has got an absolute vibe. I love it.
It's nice. Yeah. This is our main studio and our Atmos room where we have done most of the mixing work for this game that we are to talk about.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit about you. Give me a little background on how you've arrived at this place. Tell me more about you.
Sure. So I'm Franco Freda. I'm the head of audio here at Paradox Interactive. This is, in fact, one of several sound studios in our Stockholm office where it all began. Not in this office particular. We have been moving quite around through the city, but essentially here in this amazing hub of game development, where Europa Universalis originally started as well. And I'm joined here by Mattias.
Yes, and I'm the audio director of Europa Universalis V and some other game, including Victoria 3, for instance. So I have shared responsibilities between many games.
Europa Universalis V, funny enough, is being developed in Tinto, which is our studio in Spain, where we have a bunch of great developers, most of them local from the Spanish community, and also some of our veterans coming from different parts of the Paradox Interactive family as well. So it was great to see the collaboration happening between the two studios, and Paradox Audio being a central team. We had the luxury to be able to help them out remotely as well. So it's been really good.
Paradox, what a legacy. Like this is, a company that goes way back, delivering amazing games for a community of folks who are really invested in the types of games that Paradox is making.
I mean, you mentioned 25 years. That's roughly what Paradox Interactive's history also has. So
Incredible.
we share the anniversary there.
Yeah.
Nice. That's great. Well, I know that you've got a ton queued up for us. Digging in deep, we're going to look at the Wwise project. We're going to spin the game and drop into different scenarios. It's going to be a great overview of the work there. Let's kick it off.
Yeah, sure. I could start by just sharing a little presentation on who we are and like what we're doing and what the game is for those who are unaware or haven't heard of us before or seen what we do.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna share the presentation slides.
Great. All set to go.
Perfect, thank you. So this is just today and us, which you have to have. You have to have a title screen when you do a presentation, otherwise it doesn't count. Anywho, we're Paradox Audio, and we're an internal team, and we support more than 10 projects, both internal and external projects from Paradox Development Studios. Here's a beautiful rendition of every member of our team in Crusader Kings 3, done by our very artsy producer, Samet. So that's my welcoming gift was me. See if you can find me in the picture. We provide audio management and production, direction, design, and as well as music production and music distribution. So anytime we put music in games, we have typically handled sourcing composers, and we also handle distribution of our own music. So any music you hear in our games will also typically be published on streaming platforms. We use both Wwise and Fmod. Today we're going to talk about Wwise, but we have games that run Fmod. And some of our games use our proprietary engine, the Clausewitz engine, among those Europa Universalis. And some games we work with use Unity. These are some of the games we work with. Just to give an overview, the more famous ones: Hearts of Iron 4, Crusader Kings 3, Stellaris, Victoria 3, City Skylines 1 and 2, Age of Wonders 4, and now Europa Universalis 5. And then there's also other games that we don't talk about. Brief history of the Europa Universalis series. The first installment, like Franco said, or that we alluded to, was released in 2000, so that's a long time ago. Number 4 was released in 2013. A ton of DLCs has been released. The last one in 2024. And Europa Universalis 5 was released October last year.
Congrats.
Just to give an overview of our fan base, this is what people say. So, as you can see, people play the game for many hours, like thousands and thousands of hours, and we have very, very dedicated fans. And as you also saw, Europa Universalis V has been running since, I mean, it's 12 years, and people were still or are still playing it. So that's sort of the horizon we work with, that we have in mind when we work, just to maybe juxtapose it a bit to some other games or some other ways of thinking or working or setting up your team and project for success, basically. And this is typically what a game that we make can look like. It's a map and a lot of fancy menus, and you can dig down into the nitty-gritty of setting the tax percentage in Niedersachsen in 1526 because you want to really squeeze the burgers of all they have. If that's your fantasy and what you think is fun, you can typically do stuff like that in our games. And either play history as it was or play a game where you alter history or want to alter history. What if scenarios is common as well. We can put a little break there, because that's just like basically us getting into all the way from our team into our game, and then take it anywhere you want to take it.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the things you were talking about there is just the scope and scale, right? From the community perspective, folks who are following along over iterations, but also this scope of gameplay and campaign, right? You're in it. You might be soaking in it for hours or days or weeks or months as a player, and these kind of considerations about how do you prepare for that? How do you design for that? How do you bring not only that moment-to-moment gameplay feedback that we know is an important piece, but also that, wow, you're going to be hanging here, and we need to make sure that we're giving you what you need in order to sustain this in a pleasurable way.
I mean, one of the things that we always say is, for us, our main challenge and our biggest, recognition is how and when we actually keep audio fresh after thousands of hours of gameplay, right? Yeah. How do we prevent people from literally turning off either the music, the sound in general, or else? And I think that one of the main aspects that you can see already in this view, obviously there are different zoom levels, and you can enter different screens and so on. But a lot of what you do happens in the theater of the mind, as we say, right? Like most of these games are actually happening in your own intellectual fantasy and ability to decide how you want the game to pan next. So we don't have necessarily the cues coming from the game that we can sort of like connect in too much as in some other styles and some other type of games, right? Some other genres. So how to design that to make audio still be interactive, still be dynamic, is what I think these guys have actually done a great job at for the case of Europa Universalis, for example.
Mapping sound to the universe in your mind. Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, because you're trying to support that intellectual mechanism that's unfolding as part of the gameplay.
Yeah, and we're also faced with a challenge where a lot of our games is like, we joke internally about them being glorified Excel sheets. Like it's a lot of it is just a lot of statistics, and it's up to you to bring the narrative alive in your head. And so compared to another game or a different type of game, we don't have that much action on screen representing what's actually going on. So there's a ton of simulation going on under the hood that is represented in the form of numbers, etc. But the world as such isn't portrayed the same way it would be in a different genre, right? So one of the challenges that we set out to try and tackle for this title is how to make the world come alive, even when that when not much changes. So one of our goals was instead of you looking at the game as a game board, we wanted you to look at it and feel like you're in the world at all times. So because one of the biggest changes in number 5 compared to number 4 was the introduction of what we call pops, which is basically simulating individual people in the world.
Yeah.
So actually drilling down gameplay to individual people in the world and their life and needs and whatever. So we wanted to bring you to that on the ground personal level as well when you play the game, and remind you that this is a living world with people in it that feel things and do things. So that's what we set out to do. I have another picture we can show just to show the difference between sort of the different views. So this is what the overview map looks like when you're sort of looking at it as a paper map, but then you will zoom in all the way down to seeing the terrain. And as you can see, there's also a lot of art showing the world in pop-ups and menus. So both to your left here you see a little scenery, and in relation to the 100 Years War pop-up, which is an event in the game that happens because it's an historical event, there's illustrations representing this. So a lot of time and care went into making really nice 2D art representing the world. So we looked at that and we want to do that too with audio. So one of the things we did was that, there's almost a given that what you see on the map you want to hear. So that is true. If you see a forest, it sounds like a forest, and you hear the birds. And if you see cows, you're going to hear the moose, and all of that. If you see military soldiers, you will hear them. But we also wanted you to hear the images you see when you are in panels or interacting with historical events. So every panel and illustration in the game has a full Atmos soundscape attached to it. So when you move your mouse cursor between the different areas of the screen, thereby shifting your focus or representing a shift of focus for you, you will hear that thing.
Yeah, so we cannot really know what you're actually thinking of when you see, but we try to infer that if your mouse is around somewhere around here, that's probably where we're focusing on. So that's where we want to shift the audio focus as well.
So as you move around in the world, between the map, between menus, into a pop-up, we always consider the player to be where conceptually that takes place. So if you're setting your level of taxes again, you are in the treasury with your little treasurer sighing beside you, basically, or quite literally, actually.
And it is very literal as well, that the way you interact is through you picking things up, right? Clicking and physically moving buttons, and that is what the game can tell us that just happened, right?
Yeah. So that's interesting. You've got this 2D concept that you're bringing into an immersive, focused audio journey, moment to moment, in order to kind of map the internal thought process that's happening as people are, you were saying, just even by mouse location, menu depth or location, map, of course. That's a lot of shifting layers.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we ended up wanting to do that as well is that since we're a predominantly top-down map-based game, if we put everything on the map as 3D, it will always be in front of you. So we have all this speaker space then that we're not using for anything, which seemed like a waste. So we were like, oh, wait a minute, how can we make that interesting? When is it actually, in fact, applicable to put you in a 3D world? Because we, using Wwise, we have that in the box for free, right? We can just make it happen. We don't need tech support to make a 3D soundscape happen, right? So we sort of started trying that, actually inspired by a game that you worked on, Victoria 3, who it's on the event images there.
Right. So basically, if we look at one of the advantages of also our team, right, in collaborating with so many different projects along, the history of Paradox Audio, is that we always take that as an opportunity to surpass what we did before, right? So the first time we jumped into middleware to begin with, for example, was Crusader Kings 3, and that was, all right, we have already done the stereo thing, but inside of our own engine with our own audio manager, if you will, right? And then once we jumped onto middleware, we were suddenly like expanded onto, wow, we can do so much, we can prepare a lot of it. But then when we went on to Victoria, we're like, what's our next frontier, right? And one of the most logical things was like, okay, we've nailed the 2D. Can we actually start creating this feeling of being surrounded by the world, even if the world is not surrounding you, right? Because of the perspective aspect that Mattias was mentioning. So by focusing on, all right, the moment where the screen is mostly representing that 3D space is on the 2D panel arts, the event images as we call them, where it will be a requirement for you to read a bit of what's going on, so that you can try to imagine a setting that will inspire you to take one action or the other. And whilst you think about that, we can in fact use audio to set the mood, right? We can look into how to create the music, a different music piece or stinger in there, but also just have some sort of ambience. Yeah. So that was what obviously defined for us one of the first achievements on Victoria 3. And logically, as we said, when Victoria 3 compared to Crusader Kings with EU5, it was again the purpose of like, let's not forget about what we've done here, but how do we take it one step further? And obviously, what you mentioned there is exponentially more.
Yeah. So if you great, you went back to the presentation, thank you. So these are just a few examples of how varied and detailed the 2D art can be. So like in almost every panel there is a representation, very often reflecting either historical events or your current playing culture or the current culture you're interacting with. So it's very like dynamic in nature, and we really wanted to latch on to that because so much emotion went into these, and we can support them. And if we can support them in a feasible way, we should. And one of the reasons I wanted to pick up on that was that it really is one of those, like, when playing Victoria, it really is one of those moments where it's like you read the text, but then you also like stop for a moment and look at the art and like just appreciate the soundscape. It's like, in hindsight, it was a bit foolish, but I'm also happy we were a bit foolish because it worked out. But if I knew all the turns it had to take to work, maybe we wouldn't have done it. But now we did, and it's great.
I love the story of like the long arc of development across multiple iterations. Across the studio, of course, but also in this series where you can reassess, reach for something, and as you're saying, sometimes what have you gotten yourself into? Yeah. But again, I'm imagining as a player moving from a scenario where you've got stereo in front of you, framing what's happening on the screen, to now sound around you, like enveloping you in these dramatic storytelling moments, gameplay moments. And for me, that translates all the way back to headphones as well. Yeah. When you're in a 3D audio or spatial audio scenario, I'm guessing a lot of folks out there with headphones, they're immediately getting the value add of all of that work because they are now in an immersive format that is delivered right to their desktop, and taking advantage of all that good work you're doing.
I mean, that's basically one of the first things that we wanted to that really motivated us to jump into Dolby Atmos mixing, because of course, some of us might remember the times when you wanted to watch a film and that film was actually decoded in 5.1, but then you were lacking the center channel, so you would not be able to hear the dialogues, right? And of course, we've gone a long way since those days, and game engines and on audio engines such as Wwise and Fmod have been able to kind of like understand a little bit of the system that you were dealing with, to try and remix things in real time, but really pushing the boundary even more so, and considering Dolby Atmos as this kind of like system agnostic or channel configuration agnostic mixing tool. It's really what made it so that it doesn't matter if you're in a room such as this one where we have 12 speakers pointing at us, or if you're just listening to it on a soundbar, which is similar to the setup we have in a different floor in a different area in this office, or if you're just working and authoring with headphones, right? Most likely you're gonna get similar experiences. And also interesting challenges to polish that experience.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. And also, like in Wwise, the sort of out of the box panning without Atmos is great already. Like it's already with just putting things in 3D, you sort of get an endpoint agnostic method of delivering what you want to deliver. So this was sort of just a natural continuation of that. Like, what if we, because I come from a background where we used to do like, a discrete 5-1 mix and like have this like, oh, it has to fold down this way, and fold down on that platform is not good, and no. And now we're in a situation where we don't have to care about that, which is really nice. Or at least, what we found so far is that we can actually produce an endpoint agnostic mix and setup and let it be the best it can be with the setup the end user has.
Yeah.
Which is also, if we couldn't do that, we couldn't do much of what we're doing, because like we don't have time to do like a gazillion mixes.
But you're right. Like, you've got all this positional information coming from the game, coming from specific panning that you might be doing in Wwise. All of that can arrive and be transformed in the bus hierarchy according to whatever the output settings that the player chooses are. And again, it kind of arrives mixed with the highest level of precision for that output. And that's a amazing way to imagine things, is just with all of these positions, how do you stay flexible and arrive at the best sounding mix for all these scenarios?
Yeah, and also it was so obvious when Atmos became a thing for many of us working in games. Like, we've been working with 3D objects and audio forever. Like, there's no difference in what we do or how we design it. All it is that now we have a method to deliver it in a sensible way to the end user. But with more precision, of course, but like fundamentally how we design and work with our content, it's not that different. Which also means that we can apply the same philosophy when designing for someone who has an Atmos system and someone who doesn't. So no one, like, it's a win for everyone, right?
That's right.
It's been a lot of fun. Like, there's been a lot of like, oh, what if this just works doing it this way? And it's like, wow, yeah, it did. Like, we don't have to make it super complicated. It's actually kind of straightforward in the end, which just has been super exciting for us.
Yeah, it's great to hear.
It's been like, this is the first game we're releasing that uses Wwise. So it's our first Wwise integration, and it's our first game in Atmos, and it's our first game with like a more, I don't know, a more complex dynamic system setup.
I mean, you mentioned some names, not numbers there, right? Like we said something like how many events would be triggering at the same time. I do have like if I were to connect it to Europa Universalis IV, for example, I remember like 8 years ago working on one of the many expansions before it sunsetted, and I think that at that time 50 sounds was all that the game had. And now we have
like
50,
in total
files, like 50 sound files. That was the actual soundscape, right?
Yep.
And then on top of that, or separate to that, you had music, right? But music was stereo. Sound effects were mono, and they were like basically the only feedback that you have. And we were working with what we had there, and we were already pushing the boundaries as much as possible. But it was not like only until I think Crusader Kings 2, their last expansion. That's when suddenly we started saying, like, we don't need to have just this many. We can make it smart. And we started expanding that. And now we have, like, in one of these panels that you're just looking at, you probably have 50, not sounds, you have 50 events triggering at the same time with multiple sounds coming from multiple actors, positioned all around, And sure, technology and, systems are more capable now than 8 years ago. But it's not just that. I think it's also mentality shifts.
Yes.
It's the technology, how it enables you to tell the story, And I think that my biggest realization here is that every time we've done one of these changes, it became the norm and it became an expectation, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like naturally that's what's going to happen also with Dolby Atmos. It certainly is for us, right? So now we know that this is our default. Like we can do it.
Yeah, and we
just do
know
it.
we have techniques to achieve it without added labor for us, right? We've found how we can work with the format in a sensible and sustainable way. But it is really interesting. Think like the scope from the last game to this game is crazy. It's like I think we have like 1,500 assets just for military units now. So like the scale is something completely different, which is kind of interesting to look at when you have two games this far apart in the same series. It becomes very obvious how far game audio has come and how far the industry as a whole has come, for sure.
And fundamentally it's about preserving all of that positioning so that you can really level up the immersive quality of the audio, whether you're on a multi-channel speaker system in a room, a sound bar like you mentioned, headphone-based binaural representation. It's just taking as much of that positioning, preserving it, and delivering it. But I think something Franco said is, the storytelling. Like, we have so many tools now to help to tell the story that's unfolding as part of the game. And it sounds like you really reached for a new dimension of that.
Yeah, and also like when having all of these muscles, technological muscles to represent space with audio, even with all of that, it became very apparent that we still have to curate and narrate how we want things to be processed for you to feel what we want you to feel, for you to get an apprehension of space and depth of space. We need to make conscious behavior choices for the audio for that to translate. Like we need, if you want to hear depth, then we need something coming from far away and something coming close, because if there's no juxtaposition, there's no depth of field. So it's also interesting, like because very often spatial audio, like this, let's not say spatial audio because it's branded, but like perception of space in audio and Atmos can feel like black magic, like what is this new thing? And then it turns out that most of us has already been working with it. We just haven't thought about it that way. So like we work with the same tools when we work in Atmos as we would otherwise. Like if we want something to sound more distant, it's filtered and more wet.
And we're teetering right on the edge of dynamic mixing, right? And we've been here for years, and we're exploding it into 3 dimensions and pushing into all of these places. But fundamentally, I think what you're saying is, hey, it's dynamic mixing, and we've got more tools than ever to help focus the player, and as you mentioned, behaviors as well as perceptual shifts to help reinforce that storytelling element.
And you sort of can't get out of having to make those behavior design choices, no matter what platform you're using to do audio work. You still have to sort of apply a critical listening ear and go like, how do we curate this? What do we choose to do, and why do we choose to do that? So like I think for me at least, working on this game, it's like a lot of the stuff I thought I knew, I've had to discard, but more importantly, a lot of it has been just circling around to like, that thing that I thought was too simple to be true was in fact true. Like you don't have to make things more complex than they are very often, but still you can still retain the same sense of disbelief or tell the same story. So for instance, in our if you want to switch to the presentation again, I can show another example of an artist.
Let's go.
And then I can show a little video example of how we move between these spaces. So this is a loading screen, which is our most sort of high-res, high-impact thing. So there's a bunch of stuff going on, right? And the difficulty in a scene like this would be like, okay, we have so many different things. Some are super loud, some are not loud. How am I supposed to put these in a random fashion? Because this can go on and you're going to revisit the screen a million times. So you don't want a linear thing happening. You want it to be super dynamic and random. So we sort of tried to wrap our head around that. And with the whole depth of field aspect in mind, we just chose that everything loud we will put further away from you, and anything quiet we will put closer to you. So that means that in loudness, what reaches you will be sort of equal between them. So they don't have to duck under each other, they can just exist. And you get the sense of space. And anyone who wants to put any of our sound actors in any event, i.e. any illustration, can just drag and drop it in, and they don't have to mix it. Nothing is bespoke mixing, basically. Everything is just drag and drop.
Amazing.
Because we made one conscious choice of like, what if we do this? Will that solve that problem? Yes, it does. Okay, great. Will it solve that one too? Yes. Awesome. Does it, mean we can express space? Yes, it does. Oh, perfect. So we don't even typically place stuff purposefully. It's like, to the player, it's much more important that there are horses. I see horses in the picture. There are horses around me. It's much, much, much more important than, the horse is exactly there.
Yeah.
So spatial audio and objects become interesting because you can feel like, I hear a horse exactly over there. But since our art representation is actually static, we can afford to fantasize about what happens after, before, over there. All of those things are free for us to fantasize about. And that, amounts to us just saying, put it anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing.
Which is kind of neat. I can show you an example here, and I hope we get audio. Let me know if we don't. Which is basically us moving between different contexts and these ambient environments shifting. Let's see if it's ambient, so it might be too quiet. We'll see. So that's basically it. That's an example of what it can be like to move between our different environments, and how, what the flow looks like and how it works. And all of them are full Atmos environments, mostly using audio objects.
And also what we can do is that because every one of those images was bespokely made and they are in fact static, then they become almost the story itself. So the creation of that image is something that you guys can handle individually, which is a lot of work, but it also makes it so that every one of those will have these components. These components will then, of course, have differences in the random containers and, change according to different factors. But essentially, they're telling, this is the story, these are the components for this story, and multiply that by thousands of them. Right?
Yeah. so our implementation method is basically the DDS file, the image file for that art piece has a name. And that name is the same name as the Wwise event. And in the Wwise event, we drag and drop the actors we want. And that's that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So the Wwise event kind of becomes your palette to play back different sounds as part of these scenarios.
Yeah. So we're since we're coming, as we've talked about, we're coming from a background in the last game where technology looked very different, and audio technology specifically looked very different. So we have worked a lot on how to explain how game audio works. And the first thing we said was that we don't design sound effects, we design sound behaviors. Just to make sure that people don't understand that what we do is make a file for you to play. It's like, that's not our point. We have libraries where we can just pull stuff in, right? So like, if we don't want to design, we don't have to. But we do have to design the behavior for how that's supposed to be represented in the game. How does it change? When does it happen? Those questions are typically, we're more occupied with those than the sound itself. That's the first thing. And the other thing, I come from working with both Wwise and Fmod, and then the concept of an event becomes tricky. So the way I've explained Wwise events to someone coming from Fmod is that the Wwise event is a series of instructions that happened at a specific place in space and time. That's all it is. So if it's a series of instructions, our instructions for an art piece like that is, in this art piece, these things exist. That's our whole instruction.
Yeah.
And since they are so varied, and we have a lot of stuff to pull from our sort of in-Wwise library of sounds, variation will come from that fact. And also we have sort of, you mentioned dynamic mixing, and we have voice limits on our categories of sounds, on our loudness categories, to make sure we don't oversaturate space.
Yeah.
Which also means that if I assign 10 quiet sounds, but I only allow 5 to play, and they have we set them to have a random delay before starting. So that means that they will sort of auto-cull themselves to a reasonable amount.
Yeah.
So each time I go into the picture, the same ones won't play either. It's going to be different every time.
I think we can actually show some of that in
sure,
Wwise directly,
definitely.
because it's a lot of fun to just like see the skeleton behind it. But as you switch there, right? Like fundamentally, the concept is still the same. The when we started, like we discussed about EU4, for example, before, right? We would still have the name of the event. And it would be event image, 17. And we knew that event image 17 was, horses, going against each other with sables or something like that. Yeah. And then we would prepare the sounds, the sound design, the soundscape on our digital audio workstation, right? And then we would create all of this, basically this storytelling. We would do it in a timeline. We would say, now do this, then do some screams and stuff like that. And then at some point, we would have to decide, do we want to loop it or do we want to make it a one-shot? Yeah. Fine. Then go and play it. And that's what we would tell our team, right? Like our colleagues. Now, when this image is displayed, play this sound and, hopefully people get it.
Yeah.
But if we look into how everything is now, we're talking still about the same concept. The DDS, which is the event itself, well, in this case, we're talking about the image specifically, but it's still telling this is going to happen and this is what's going to be displayed, but we have the ability to not necessarily make it a finite experience that will repeat itself, but instead really take the instructions out of the DAW into the middleware, in this case Wwise, and tell Wwise almost as in a, not necessarily a timeline fashion, but in an instruction set, go and do all of this because these are our components now.
Yeah. So much more like this illustrates very clearly the whole difference between designing a sound effect and sound behavior. Yeah. In that, like before it was literally a sound effect, and now it's literally only a sound behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect.
The design job of making a soundscape for this is designing the behavior of it. You should not have to make that many assets. So we reuse the same assets for all of them. We just change the reverb for the space you're in, because people walking on dirt will happen in many different spaces. So we just change the reverb, and that's that.
Yeah, it's the systemic sound design approach, whereas, historically we may have been locked into a linear reproduction of a moment to help illustrate that moment with sound. Now you're taking these behaviors, these sound scenarios, and you're able to mix and match them across different things. And again, I think there's something really smart to the way that you modified the vocabulary that you communicate with the team, because it's not just turning a faucet on and having audio come out. It's more about orchestrating these behaviors and elements to support the moment to moment, but also with that variation piece, which, you're nailing in this way. Because they'll be repeated over and over.
Yeah. So that's something that we took into consideration. Like if we have this thing where when you move your mouse cursor over it, it plays the soundscape. If you had the same start of it every time, it would sound very gamey and not at all like a living world, right?
Yeah.
So we had to figure out how to not make that happen.
Nice. Okay, let's jump into some whys. You ready for this?
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
So here's an example of how we sort of split it up. So we call these little scenes contextual ambience as opposed to map ambience on the map, because you shift between contexts, so it's contextual ambience. And we split them in nature and urban sounds, and I'll explain in a bit why. But for the urban sounds, we then split them in 4 loudness categories, and each loudness category, let's see if I'm correct where I put this, but yeah, great. So it has 2 parametric EQs, one just basically being making it sound more distant.
Yep.
And an important factor there is that we noticed is that the low pass and high pass filters are additive in Wwise, the built-in ones.
Yeah.
So if we're using them for our attenuation settings, and then we're also using them on an actor or a bus level, those stack up and suddenly you have no audio. So we made sure that these sort of distance perception has to be translated using a EQ plugin instead.
Right.
And we are typically using shelves for that. But as you saw, there was also another effect here that I called focclusion. We don't have a 3D world, but we're still going to have to pretend that sometimes you're indoors, sometimes you're outdoors, right? And sometimes you're indoors, but you have a big archway leading to the outdoors.
Right.
So what we did, again, was like, I don't know if this is a good case for using Occam's razor as a concept, but we just said that anything in the loud and loudest categories, let's consider them to always be outdoors if you are indoors.
Right.
So if we say in the event that you are now indoors, it will apply a faked occlusion on anything outdoors. So that we can also reuse the same sounds, but add that as a perspective as well. Because you might be in your quiet little study and not much going on, but there's an entire city living outside, right? And then we want the city sounds to come in and your sounds to be your sort of intimate little chamber. So that's a difference we can apply just by, like, we have sort of the benefit of deterministic scenes, right? Which is it's good for us because then we can make these clear-cut choices, which sometimes in other games you can't make. You can probably apply some of the same sort of thinking around it, but and that served us really well. Like, you're definitely in the space and you're not going to move until you go out of this panel, you know.
Yeah. Great technique.
And that worked out quite all right. Yeah. And then the reason we have them as urban and nature is that for instance, say you have throne room illustration and there's a big archway to the left leading out to a garden. So it's actually open, there's no window panes or anything. And you have birds. So then you definitely want to hear the birds from your left. So what we're doing then, this is actually one of the few times when we do a hard down mix in Wwise, is that, and then again, like, this is gonna come back to bite me. I'm like, this is not at all where you set that up, Mattias. What are you doing? It is. Perfect. So what we're doing is, in the event, we can also hard set pan for the entire bus.
Yeah.
So in this case, we actually do hard mix it down to something because we want to steer it. And the only way we can steer it is by doing that.
Amazing.
So then we can take all of nature, shift it to your left.
Yep.
So again, to the player, it's like, there are birds, step 1 achieved. They are to the left, step 2 achieved. They're outdoors, I'm indoors. That's suddenly an immense amount of detail. When you're talking about this many illustrations, that's very, very detailed. And we could never do that on a per asset basis. That's impossible.
Yeah.
So then all we do is, when you go out of that illustration, we just reset all the stats. So when you go into a new one, we're going to hard set them if we have to.
That's it.
And also there is something to be said about how we can actually do all of this because we control sort of like what's on the stage, right?
Yeah.
Because we know for a fact that people are watching this and they're focusing on this, and we're making that conscious choice that the mix is now going to shift according to what we have used as the instruction set. So that's the biggest advantage of actually doing all of this at the mixer level, right? With RTPCs moving things around and so on, instead of on the event level, or like
Totally.
letting it move in the real world, right? Or the generated world.
And this is also a way to leverage the fact that the event is just a series of instructions at a point in time, and the instruction now happens to be set this parameter to this.
Exactly.
And we can bank on that, since we can bank on the event being executed.
So can we look at one of these events for a scene, for one of these 2D scenes, and see the kind of puppeteering that you're doing across all of the different things that are happening? So for instance, this scene.
Yeah, so it's the expansion panel that you saw an example, where you had the sea to your left, and to your right, and a little city on a hill slope to your left. So we're saying you're in a European local context, just to like set the stage, and this affects stuff like wildlife and some other things that we want to systemize rather than doing another way around. And you set the reverb settings we want to use, because we're hard setting all our reverbs as well. We can just hard set them because we have that option. That's great.
Amazing.
We start some basic wind and that's another aspect that's important here. All of our assets are mono. Every single thing, including surround room tones, and like if we do surround, we place individual mono sounds around us. That's how we do it, because we found halfway through the project that surround format files don't really fall down well ever. And even less so with noise-based sources, meaning all of wind and room tones. It just turns to mush. So we stopped doing that. And this is also great, because it means that when exporting from Reaper that we work in as a DAW, we can say like everything is always mono, everything is always normalized to -24. We get a super cohesive export set, and we know exactly what we can expect when we import it. It's very, very good for us. But if we move ahead here, we also say that we want birds that are typically found around settlements, and we want a beach. So it starts the beach sounds, but then we also say, but the beach is in fact to your right. How great. And it's also a little bit in front of you. And the city is actually to your left. And it's also a little bit in front of you. And then we want a cat, and we want someone with a cleaver, someone sweeping the city, some coughing, some hysterical laughter, and some walla, some of these things. We just want some human life, someone doing something around you. And we typically, since we have a static image, we can invent what goes on inside of buildings or behind buildings. We can tell a whole little story of what goes on pretty freely. So really it's about like our sound designers imagining what could be going on and assigning verbs to the space around you. So like the design choice is, I'm looking at this, what do I feel like should be existing here? Which also is like a fun sort of harkens back to when I've been working with ambient design at previous titles. Like designing assets, sure, that's a lot of your job when designing ambient sounds, but the really difficult thing is coming up with stuff that goes on around you. Like I'm in the space, what could be happening here that makes sound? That's actually one of the most difficult, most time consuming things, is just scouring your library going like, what are people doing here? Like what could they be doing? So when we have thought of things that people could be doing and we put them in as an asset in our system, it's reusable for anyone. And you go like, I knew, someone could be cleaning here. Do we have that? Oh, someone is, they could be moving that cup I see over there in the picture. And then we have the sound of someone moving a cup. So it becomes this whole like again, we know we're gonna make a gazillion DLCs hopefully. So when we're producing content for the DLCs, this is also learning from Victoria, because we noticed that for Victoria, where we do the event images one by one, it's a lot of work, because it's bespoke work per event image. And we knew that if we're going to do DLC for this, and we want to do this for every panel, we cannot possibly do that. You can't sit down in your DAW and do this. You have to be able to do it in like 20 seconds, a minute, and that's where we got to eventually.
one of the fun things that happened with Victoria as well, and this is something that we've discussed at length with our friends at Firelight as well, is that we have actually we've taken a lot of the inspiration from our work in Wwise, for example, back to Fmod.
Oh, totally.
And created sort of like events that are not really events that the gamer is going to trigger, but it's just for us to use as actors inside of the event that the game is actually going to trigger, right? So we're using nested events there and so on, trying to represent this same thing as well. So at the end of the day is also realizing that, you know, the tools are there, but the philosophy of how to actually make that happen in game is something that you can in fact take with you from title to title, and you can definitely reuse all of that mentality to achieve you know, whatever you're trying to achieve, right? So.
Yeah, totally. It's very easy. It's very easy to get lost in like, oh, I have to have this fancy tech to do this cool thing.
Yeah.
But very often it comes down to, but you already know how to do it.
Yeah.
You already know how to achieve this. And it's more about structuring your choices rather than like having, you know, needing all that code time necessarily. Sometimes you do. I'm not gonna, you know, shy away from that. But in our case here, it's like, okay, since I can bank on the event, all we asked from code was make sure we get the event with the same name. And that's literally all you have to do. Just make sure that that's what we get.
And
we're even using the debugger in Wwise to tell us what we need to do. Because everything is being posted. So if we don't have a response to that, then at least we know, because we see it on Wwise. It's like, hey, dude, you forgot about this one. Oh.
Yeah, and that kind of automation of events is like near and dear to my heart, right? Because in a system like this, or even systems that we can count on in game development, you know, we're to a point where we should be able to assume that an event should be there, and find a way to automate that so that it just arrives at the desk of the sound designer when profiling, or you know, as part of their work unit in the morning, whatever it takes to automate that, so that we can just get there faster with what we already know we need. I want to throw it back for a second. We got Guido with us in the chat asking to dig in a little deeper into some of the specific surround issues with regards to that mushiness that you ran into. Is there something else to say about that decision to go mono for your quad assets or for some of your multi-channel assets? Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So first thing is, we have noticed when you talk about these types of things that everyone's working a little bit in the dark still, and everyone's trying out different ways of solving stuff. So I don't want to come across as if we found, you know, the silver bullet solving every problem. But for us, this worked really well. So what we noticed was, you know, first that it's harder to create variation when you have a discrete surround file. Whereas in our case now, if I place 4 emitters, essentially, which is what I'm doing, I can modulate them all. I can slightly, you know, get them coming in and out, which on its own is fine as a complete ambient soundscape of wind.
And you're talking
they move independently.
Yeah, you're talking like seek time or initial delays or fade in times.
Localized random LFOs is my big friend here.
Nice.
So I typically for wind in games put one global LFO for like general wind intensity, but then I put a local one on a per voice basis on all the emitters. Because then with very few assets, mono assets, you can create almost any soundscape you want. And this is with us placing static emitters, right? And that's for my base sort of room tone outdoors. What we're also doing is, you know, generating a whole bunch of mono assets to use for wind gusts that move past you in Atmos space, because we get that for free. It's not the first thing you'd think of, like, oh, we got Atmos, let's do wind gusts. But you can do it out of the box immediately, super easily, and it sounds really, really good. Just do it. It's great.
Ooh, cool.
Actually, I think that also one of the areas where we sort of identified this need to think about how the fold downs were going to happen was actually playing out with the Wwise Audio Lab. So we open the Wwise Audio Lab, and in these rooms, right, we have this decoder where we are expecting to be able to take the Dolby Atmos for home theater, sort of like, expectation or decode from the source. But then if you don't do that, then you can also just run it with 7.1 on the Windows spatial audio. And the results were ever so slightly different on some of the sources. So we started looking into those, and there were a few of the, for example, the fountain or the fire pit, right? And they really did sound different. So we started looking into how that actually was created inside of the Wwise session, and we identified that that was sometimes the case. If there was a stereo or if it was a mono, it would be different, and it would actually transfer, like the filtering would actually transfer differently. So it's, again, it's maybe what is going on right now or what goes on for us in this particular scenario, but this was the easiest way to kind of like guarantee the translation as much as possible.
And also another benefit is that if you do that and you have your mono assets, they're way more reusable and scalable and lightweight, and you can use them for anything, right?
Yeah.
Whereas your discrete soundscape is like, it's that and that thing only. So we're using the same assets for both gusts and bass tones, and we can do many things with them that we couldn't do before, which is also very much to our benefit.
Well, and I think you're pulling on something there that's this idea of reuse. And we talk about it with variations. We talk about it in the context of this wind, but just like we still have limitations that we need to work within. So squeezing as much variation, squeezing as much use out of the assets that you have as part of your project, well, that's just smart thinking. And now I'll take that all the way back to this event and the system that you have for these different panels, and it's that you've designed systemically these sounds and behaviors to be able to have within reach what you need to paint these scenes with sound, reusing what you have, getting that variation across each of the panels. And of course, when you need it, you reach into your sound libraries to pull out something that's specific or unique. But again, what you end up with is that variation.
And anytime you design a new asset, even if it's for specific use, you always put it in the general library anyway, in our Wwise session, so that whenever anyone needs that in the future, it's going to be there and it works. But to make this work, you also have to make some concessions, I want to say. And like you have to consciously choose not to allow flexibility, for instance. It's like, this is how they work and the only way they work, and you're not allowed to do overrides is one thing. Like, you're not allowed to touch the override parent button or the checkbox.
Because you never know where they're actually being called.
No, then it's going to be super difficult. Like everything always has to be super agnostic to where it might be placed, which is something that I keep forgetting. And like, because you dig down, it's like, oh, that one bird doesn't sound good, and then you dig down and you fix it. It's like, great, I fixed that, and like 5 months later, it's like, why don't I hear any birds? Well, this one time 5 months back, you did this stupid thing that you shouldn't have done.
It's almost like the concept of a sampler instrument to a certain degree, right? Like if you go and modify your samples just because there was one time that you played that chord that didn't sound very nice, then suddenly once you're actually doing a melody, that sample itself is going to play 20 dB lower, and you don't hear it or whatever. So maybe change your chord, I would say.
Exactly. And like we keep having to remind ourselves, like I try to remind myself to do edits at the topmost possible place in the hierarchy, which it sounds smart when you say it, but then you keep forgetting about it. Like, oh wait, can I move this one step up? Yes, I can. Then I should, and I should leave it there, and I should not override it. And another like red flag is like, oh, hold on, I'm doing a lot of custom overrides here. Then probably my core system is wrong. It's also one of those things like you have to keep coming back to iteratively. So like, wait a minute. For instance, with the filtering with the different categories, it's like, wait a minute, I'm doing all these weird overrides now. Like, then there's something else I need to change because like this doesn't fly. Like, I can't be working this way.
Yeah, and the workflow also takes you all the way back to where are you spending most of your time on? Right? Are you spending more time inside of Wwise or inside of your DAW?
Yeah.
What are you actually producing? Are you producing content that you're going to be manipulating later, or are you producing a final content that it's only going to ever be able to play in one way? Right, like those require a mental shift, which is quite fun, especially because we all come in one way or another from this timeline mentality from linear background,
definitely.
right? And you're instructed to modify all of that to create the diegesis that you're trying to represent. But we have these tools that can do it for us, right? So you might as well just have something as dry as possible and then change the reverb. You know?
Yeah, and that's also like this whole thing. We don't design sound effects, we design sound behavior. It's also like putting ourselves as sound designers squarely in middleware. That's where our design happens. It doesn't happen in DAW. We prepare stuff in the DAW, yes, and we can do really important stuff there. And for some types of games, you actually do critical stuff there. But most of the time, in most games, you just need to curate content from a library and get it in your middleware, because that's where the magic happens. Bam. Like, don't do too much before you get to your middleware, because you're going to have to circle back and change stuff anyway. Like, there's no point in polishing something before it goes in middleware, is my strong feeling. And we're trying to sort of, with setting the system up, it's like the more clear cut we can make a specification for an actual sound file asset design, like it has to be dry, it can't have too much low end, like there can't be any proximity effect, it has to be exported at -24. Like there's a bunch of like pretty easy rules to follow, where like we remove sort of the subjectivity of the design. It's like, is it the thing that you want to, it's like, it's the sound of a rattling bucket. Is it that? Yes, it is. Okay, great. Does it sound like that? Yes, it does. Okay, great. Have you just thought about these 4 things? Yes, you have. Okay, perfect. Then we're ready to put it in, and anyone can use it forever. Trying to sort of remove the sort of, you know, sitting there pondering what to do, and like, because the choice is, does that thing exist? That's the important choice, and that's what the player is going to pick up on anyway. So that's where we should spend our time.
And maybe it's even pushing it too far into the metaphor or the reminiscence, but it's almost like going all the way back to Foley times.
Oh, totally.
You know,
100%.
Yeah, and what you end up with is a consistency of aesthetic across the game, because you've made those content choices, you've prepared them and their behaviors, and now as you're picking and choosing, bringing them into different scenarios, you have a consistency that you might not get if you were back and forth to the DAW, your sample library. You know, you can rely on these things that you have within reach. I think there's something really, clear about that method.
Yeah, and also when we get feedback from the team of our players now, saying like, oh, I think, you know, the latest thing was like, I think coughs are too loud.
Yeah.
And I can actually then go in and say like, okay, I'm going to lower the coughs then.
Right.
And I can just do that because it's just one thing.
Exactly. Okay, so question coming in from the chat, and I'm going to tie it back to something that you were saying, you know, like with any project at scale, like you're keeping it inside of your head at any moment, but also unable to keep it completely inside of your head. So a question, you know, it's easy to forget that the change is applied to a system instead of one particular sound. So how do you track that or keep track of it, or, you know, how do you come back to those choices throughout the course of a project? Do you have any ways that you, I don't know, manage those decisions?
We like managing a project at this scale with this type of structure is new to us, so we're still exploring how to do it in practice. And it's really important to mention that the whole of Paradox Audio has been involved in working with this. So how many sound designers are we even?
We have 4 sound designers that have all poured their time and effort onto making both the content that ended up in Wwise and the Wwise events themselves that are playing through the game, right?
So a lot of it has been like a collaborative effort in making assets and a collaborative effort in implementing. And our way of dealing with that for this project has basically been to keep communications alive. Just like make sure you keep talking about like and keep reviewing each other's work and going like, it seems like you added a local high pass filter here. Do you remember that if we do that, it's going to mean this, this, and this? But that also means that sometimes someone who is more consistently on the project like I've been, I forget that as well, and it turns out like, hey, something's not working. Why is it not working? And I make the same mistakes as well. So like, it's like it's this thing with big projects that yes, you can enact rules, but they're really hard to enforce that way. It really happens in sort of continuously repeating your process and repeating the patterns until they're muscle memory, and even then you sometimes forget. But it's all about just communicating and looking at each other's work and listening to each other's work all the time, and playing the game. So like if you play the game, it's like I can't hear people anymore. What's the problem? That's great. Or like then you can circle back and go, oh, hold on, when did we do work on this last? Like what did we do then? And like it's a bunch of stuff like that.
And there's also something to have into consideration there, which is we were just mentioning how there are 4 sound designers in Paradox Audio, and all of them have actually contributed to this project. But generally, because of the ebb and flow of game development, and because of the fact that, as you remember probably from one of the first slides, we do have several projects happening at the same time. Generally, we don't have the luxury of having every sound designer working on the same project at the same time, right? So they do come in at different moments, and there might be, there's not necessarily like specializations or anything like that. So therefore, it needs to be easy to take on at any given time, and then you need to multiply that by how many years the game has been live, right? Because if there's something Paradox is well known for, is that we do work with downloadable content, DLCs, expansions coming up, and so on and so forth. So this is all coming from realizations from previous projects as well, right? Sure. Like sound designers coming in, then leaving, and then suddenly it's like, how was that done, and where was that structure, and how do we actually go in and modify that content? Do we have to redo it all from scratch? All of this is all about trying to make things more efficient in the long run, but also to take advantage of the fact that we are a team, a central team that is. We have our kind of like webs in all of these different projects that kind of like are sort of similar. So we are all dealing with the same set of problems, for example. So we can benefit from the same type of solutions.
Yeah, for sure. And also this is one of the reasons we have tried to keep the sort of specifications of what an asset is as simple as possible, because since like regardless of anyone's skill or experience or anything, over time many people touching the same thing, it has to be very clear what you put in. And if we put in anything subjective in that, if it's like, oh, it has to be approved this way, or it has to be this, look at this reference aesthetic, it has to be this, we're trying to avoid all of that. Just because it's impossible to maintain over 10 years. It's like it has to sound realistic, and it has to be delivered according to these like 4-step specs, and then it should just work. And if it doesn't work, then we look at our system, and we look at our system together. That's sort of how we've gone about it.
Wow. And again, like communication, back to that foundation. It's about staying in contact and staying aware.
Absolutely.
We need to hear some of this in the game.
Yeah,
sure. Let's switch over to the game. Let's see if I manage to do that and it's still running. Sometimes it decides to crash on you,
Yeah. I'm hoping we can land at one of these panels to hear some of that. I'm switching over to the screen because I just want to take a pause and look at all of those amazing sliders that you have for audio. And I've done some deep dives into the faders of game audio that are presented to users, and I have to say I'm a huge fan of more faders better. So it's a delight to see what you have here for people to adjust.
We are too, but more importantly our players are, because if they play our game for thousands of hours, they're gonna end up in a space where it's like, I only want the UI, and they should be entitled to make that choice, because we want them to stick around.
Yeah.
But we have basically chosen to split it up between the diegesis of the world and then the non-diegetic music and then the interface. That's the big stems.
Listen, I've seen so many bus hierarchies that mirror that exactly, that you must be onto something.
Yeah.
It seems to work quite well. And then we have we're always going to have these types of things where it's like, oh, I really hate this specific sound. And
Right.
sometimes we cater to those needs because yes, I understand how you could, or with this specific playstyle over 2,000 hours, yes, I understand that can be annoying. Let's see what we can do about that.
Yeah.
So we are addressing more precise stuff as well. But that's about it. And then down here we have some settings for the music system where you can pick what music system you want.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And you can pick the density, which is essentially how long the breaks are between songs, because I have a little track that's a certain set length, and if I increase or decrease the play rate of that, I effectively increase or decrease the length of the silence. So it's just a silent thing. Just to give people the option of do you want back-to-back songs, or do you want long breaks so you can hear the ambience? What do you want to do? And then we actually have the choice, if you pick one of our non-dynamic systems, then you can choose the music intensity yourself with a slider.
Yeah, which is all connected to parameters inside of Wwise, so it's actually gonna make the mix in real time for you, essentially.
Yeah. So it's a way to. So we made a dynamic music system on release, but this is a way to showcase that to the players hands-on. So you control music intensity live with that slider when the game runs.
And in a minute, of course, we're also going to dive deep into how that whole dynamic system works, which, just stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Love it.
But before that,
we can just bring up the volume and see what we get. This is our world, and you now hear Feras Haristan playing the canon. Playing one of the themes or an improvisation around one of the main themes from the game. And this is what our world looks like. You can pan around, you have some dudes walking around here. And their Foley or their movement sounds, if I'm to be correct, depend on what equipment they're using. So they will sound different depending on armor, depending on weapon. And then you can zoom out, and you're zooming out from the world, so you don't hear the world as much. What we do then as well is we use the steering again to push everything down, and then when you come down, we push it up like this. So you can do that type of movement, which has served us very well with a map-based game. So when you go down here, it's actually more actual Atmos, but then when you zoom out, we push it down and away. In 3D speaker space, because we have the option to do that, so we might as well.
Amazing. So it's pulling the focus on the audio and then diving into it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then when you zoom all the way out, this is where you're looking at your map on a table. So now we consider you to be in your little, tactical study, moving around, looking at stuff. And then as it gets to this, you get the sound of you removing your map, and you go back to looking at the map like this.
Smooth.
And then we can move a bit between these different screens. Here you have your military, and now you're on the battlefield with the military guys. And this is your navy then. Same thing. And here's your little throne room. And you hear the birds to your left because there's an open archway. But you also hear the marble floors, people shuffling across that, someone, clearing their throat, maybe whispering to an advisor. And then, another scene, we're outdoors. Now the birds are all around you instead, and you hear insects, and you hear the wind and the rustling in the trees. And then if you click a location on the map, you get the representation of the location to your left, and then you can also hear that location, or you're supposed to be able to hear that location.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Oh no, you do.
This one works. Maybe that gave us a debug profiler to go.
And then the location illustrations are actually built up of components, but each component is a DVS file. So if it's a river, we just have an event called river, and then we play the sound of a river, and it works. And for these images, for instance, we know that the city is always going to be in the distance. So we have pushed the urban sounds off into the distance to the front speakers, because we can make that deliberate choice. We can bank on that being true. And now our song was up. Let's see if we get an orchestral soundtrack song, because we have part of the soundtrack that's purely non-diegetic, which is orchestral, more cinematic soundtrack, and then we have what we just heard, which is a culturally dependent, depending on what culture you play. You get culturally appropriate music from that period performed in a style that was present in that period. And also, that music plays through the in-game reverb of the scenes. So as you move through the world, that cultural soloist will follow you to the space you are in. Whereas the orchestral soundtrack is playing through a more generic ambisonic reverb. But we're using the space for the music as well. So as it increases and decreases in intensity, we move it around in 3D space around you, just to like emphasize the reactivity of the music without having to add more of the assets than we had. So we have stereo deliveries, but we can, you can still take a stereo file and move it where you want it to be and play it through an ambisonics reverb, and it's actually a quite different experience compared to just listening to it in stereo. So our music also reacts to what you do. So if I start doing things in the world, start clicking things or making choices, it's going to increase in intensity until it gets to the orchestral soundtrack. And I bet you it's not going to work just because I'm demoing it, but luckily I have prepared a video, so no worries. But if I just start doing something stupid like clicking,
which is by no means the representation of what our players do.
No, but why I click, as an example, is that someone very quickly going through menus looking for info is playing the game very intently, right? Someone sitting thinking for a long while and then making one very conscious choice to start a war is also playing the game intently. And our players play our game in wildly different ways. They have no idea, They can be playing in any way. So how do we make music react to what they're doing? We have to come up with an agnostic system. I have a picture illustrating this. Can we look at it? Yeah. I'm just gonna do this, and then I should be able to do this, and then I should do this, and find my little picture. So we've actually prepared, this is where the meters come in, by the way. We've actually prepared a meter that we send sine tones to based on events sent from UI when you click stuff. So again, an event is an instruction, and at that point in time, we just send a sine tone. And how that works, I'm going to show you in a second. I'm just going to find
I can already see it in my head, and I love what you're doing here. I'm switching over to this image then. Ready? So, bring it.
Yeah, so if we, forgive my non-existent art capabilities, but we have a little barrel here. It has a hole in the bottom. That leaks out, and you have glasses of different sizes that you can pour water into the bucket with. That's the basic concept, and your bucket is your bus with the meter on it, and it's muted so it doesn't go to master, and the level of the bucket is the meter itself, and the size of the glass is a sine tone. Size then being how long the sine tone is, because there's an attack time to the meter. Exactly. And the release time is how much you let out of the bucket. And music will then increase in intensity as this goes up and decrease in intensity as this goes down. So that's the basic. We always hear that you shouldn't have a parameter called intensity. And then that's the first thing we did. But in this case, we knew it had to be one parameter only, because we cannot possibly cater to all these playstyles. So we have to unify it to one thing. So let's just call it music intensity and go. That was pretty much it. So I have an example here with how that sounds in practice for an orchestral track that I can play for you. I'm going to increase the intensity. So as you can hear, it's a very gradual change. So the parameter we can set the attack and release time on. We can set the attack and release time on the meter. We can adjust in different ways. And also, we knew we were getting and wanted a linear orchestral soundtrack, but we had to figure out how to make it adaptive. So the way we did that was that we had it delivered in stems, recorded and delivered in stems. And then we remove or fade out stems depending on the intensity, according to how that instrument would probably be performed if a conductor suddenly said like, now I want more. So like thinking of like, okay, if someone played this instrument, how would they stop playing?
Yeah.
Okay, they would stop at this point after this phrase, then we have to put in a custom marker for it.
Yeah.
Or know what, it's actually a snare drum, so it's fine for it to come in almost inaudible and then actually go up in intensity. That's completely fine. And actually just moving the volume actually does that. Oh, cool, then we can do that. Great, we don't have to complicate it. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
And then in some cases we had like 2 recordings of the same performance, just with muted strings on one and non-muted strings on one. So like we did it differently for different things, for different reasons, always sort of looking at the source material first and then choosing what to do, as opposed to what typically happens in games, and it's a completely sensible approach as well, which is designing a system and then writing for the system. Here we had a linear soundtrack, and we basically started with the premise of just like, okay, what can we do anything with this, was the first question. And like, okay, can we start with stems and just see what we can do? And then we did a quick demo and like, hold on, this could actually work, weirdly enough. Again, going back to like, sometimes you don't have to make things super complicated, but of course sometimes it gets complicated anyway. So like in the next example, if you want to look at that.
But pausing for a second, so back to, we were in the game, you were frantically clicking around in the UI. This was you filling up that intensity bucket.
Yes.
So you're stacking instances of sine that are adding to this meter, which is...
I mean, we can look into that on Wwise as well, if we can go back and forth in a minute, and then you can see that actually happening in real time.
Fun.
And the nice thing about that is, in our case here, we're typically relying on UI events. So we're choosing like, this is the importance of this type of thing, and all the way down to just clicking something which is the lowest important, but you're still doing something, you're still interacting. But if in another game, if you're, you want the intensity of your combat music to be dependent on your combat, then have the shots go into a meter, and there you have your combat intensity. And if you want to be really nitpicky, okay, let's not, I don't want the actual sound file, I want the sine tone that fades over distance, then do that. Like, how close are enemies? Put a sine tone on them, attenuating, and then they're going to stack up, and they're going to tell you how many are roughly close to you. Or if you want to be like, you're doing a Metal Gear Solid game, and you want to know if someone's looking at you, put a cone on where they're looking. We have cone attenuation, right? You can just put the cone there, and it's going to do the thing. This is like, we've been talking a lot with our coders about this as well, the fact that audio in essence is just data. Everything is just data. We already know what's going on because you sent us the ping, right? You sent us the parameter, you sent us the event, we know what's going on, we know how far away it is, we know all of these things. It just exists there. We might as well leverage it if we need it. This is just a roundabout way of doing that, but many games will have a much more straightforward way of doing it.
But it's also true that this is what enabled us to not necessarily be dependent on the game doing all of this for us, right? Like, we could use Wwise to actually drive most of the dynamic mixing by virtue of knowing that the event for Wwise was going to be playing. So then we took advantage of that, and then we attached our own little data driver essentially to the metering system, right?
So to scare game designers and coders, I sometimes say, as soon as you send me an event, I can do anything I want. And sometimes they get really scared, and sometimes they get really excited. It depends on their personality type. But it is in fact true. So like, you have sent me an event saying I clicked the mouse. So that has then happened, and I know it has happened. And Wwise, more importantly, knows it has happened. So we can do whatever we want at that point.
Ah, what a great thing to hear. And again, glad that you've been able to leverage these pieces of what's in the box with Wise to get what you need out of it to really reinforce what's happening at the player perspective. Across all of these systems, I think that's the continuity for me.
Yeah, and I think if anyone listening has anything to take with them, it's how much power you have available to you out of the box, and like you can actually do many things that to the end listener will sound very advanced, but you're applying, the basic tool set that we all have and share, and the same principles you could apply to a AAA game, you can apply to your little indie game. Like there's not really much stopping us from doing all of these cool things.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important to remember, because sometimes we can get stuck on like, oh, I don't have this fancy tech available, I don't have this plugin, I don't have this game engine. Yeah. But you can still use middleware, and if you can use middleware, you can make audio sound really, really, really good.
Yeah.
That's just it,
Yeah.
And something I say a lot is that when you start a game, you don't always know what you'll need to finish it.
No.
But with tools today, adopting middleware just means that when you come across that scenario that you could reinforce with audio dynamically in some way, you have what you need in the box to reach for and accomplish that goal of supporting the game with sound.
Yeah. To be fair, that's even true to how our main driver has been always for the improvements we could do into the audio of our games here at Paradox. It has always been about like, you give me this middleware and then I won't need to bother you, right? Like it's always this ebb and flow between like code support or tech support and if you just give me this and you tell me that this is happening in the game, then I can try to sort of like simulate a lot of what I would otherwise have to ask you to simulate for me, right? Yeah. So it's that shift of mentality but it is true, as you say, right? It's all about the tools that you have available, and tools have obviously been getting better and better and better, but it's at the end of the day, it's untapping the potential of that.
Yeah, and it's also demystifying what we do to people. Like another one of those things we've been trying to drill into to our tech partners and coders is that if you give us the right event at the right point in space and time with the right data, then we can give you the world. We can give you anything. Like just make sure that all of those things happen, and we're fine.
Yeah.
And like we're getting to a point now where they actually, when we're sort of in agreement and feels a sense of security in that. When it's like, I can actually tell you that if you give me this event, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like we're getting to a point now where it's proven enough that that's true. But it is. Both for sound designers and for coders, important to remember that like it does not have to be more complex than that.
And it's also true that sometimes, and I find myself being guilty of this as well, like even when we discuss this terminology with implementation or coders, tech, and so on, we say, can you expose this to me, right? Like as if what's actually happening in the game is something obscure to game audio, right? And then we ask you to expose it. Please show me the innards of that box. Whereas the actual opposite is, just throw me in there and let me play around with everything that is there, and I'll just grab myself from whatever I can to really complete the experience, I would say. So that mentality is again sort of like philosophically what drives us. It's not being exposed to something, but rather being completely immersed into the data world as much as possible.
And also like since we're all dealing with objects and data, and they're already doing that on the game side in almost all games. Like you already have your little object in the world, and it already knows what weapons it has and what health it has, and all we are asking is like, just give us that data too. And that's basically it. And you're already doing all the heavy lifting. All you need to do is, pass it along to us.
But it is true that though, I remember having this conversation when we were doing the implementation of Wise to our custom engine, right? Because of course, if people out there, you are using Wise implementation to Unity, to Unreal directly, there's a lot of this that you might not need to worry about. Right?
Oh, for sure.
But when we had to go for integrating Wise onto Closewidth, one of the first concepts that we identified, or actually our engine team identified, was the fact that Wise needed Wise objects to be determined right? And we were like, yeah, that makes total sense, because if there is something in the engine world that is recognized as such, then that is the connection point that we're going to get in our middleware. If we don't have that, then of course it's impossible to tap into, right? So sometimes other audio middlewares don't have this same mentality, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to actually be able to do all of this on your own inside of the middleware, and therefore you need to bring it back to the tech team to expose that, or to create their own system, essentially, right? Yeah. So I think that is one of the biggest advantages that we got when implementing this middleware into the game as well.
Oh, for sure. Like that, enforcing the presence of a Wwise game object to be able to play sound at all means that we can talk about object-oriented design, which is more closely related to what coders are doing anyway. Right. So it's a lot easier to talk about what we want to do then. The difficulty is sort of getting people to buy into the fact that it's not different, that we're all designing games in some respect, and we're all looking at the same things, and we all want to represent the same things, or like we have an abstraction of an object that we're all trying to represent the best way we can. Gameplay is trying to represent it gameplay wise, VFX with their stuff, and people doing 3D models with their stuff, and we're doing it with our stuff, but we're all talking about the same fundamental concept. It is a car, it's this fast, and it does this thing. That's like, okay, then we all try to present it as best as we can. But we have actually fundamentally agreed that it is in fact a car, and it is in fact driving. It's in fact this fast. And as long as we agree on those fundamentals, and where it is in 3D space in relation to you and the camera, then it's like, then that's all we have to agree on, really, to make it work. It's not more complex than that.
It's true, and I love the way you've both kind of broken it down to this kind of simple equation of universality of object-based or object-oriented design. That's such a strong metaphor, and again, shared across disciplines in game development. And of course, as you mentioned, there are still places where even with all of the tools that you have in the box, you still need to define and design and build systems to support audio.
For sure.
That you're still making those decisions about what the game does need to do that is outside of normal behaviors.
For
but
us,
also, I'll just throw one last thing in, and that's that, automating that, like you did with the posting of an event for these panels. When you can build these systems that automate these assumptions, these known quantities on the game engine side, so that audio gets what they need to be able to do things without having to jump in the deep end of someone else's pipeline, I think you really are getting that speed up.
And like we have to be pretty smart with how we produce audio for our games because of how we're structured and how we support our teams. And one way we can do that is that if someone has spent time making a very deliberate design choice, we shouldn't spend that time again. So if someone has, spent the time making this art piece, calling it something and implementing it, so like, why should we do that again? If they've already done it and made that choice, the choice is made, and we should make sure it happens, and it happens in a nice way. We can be the drivers in some cases, but if someone else is the driver, and someone said there's a fire here, we say, great, we have enabled you to put a fire anywhere you want. You make that choice. If you're designing the scene, if it would be a 3D scene, and someone placed an object there, it should just work. It shouldn't need us or our attention for it to work. We should have enabled it to work and enabled them to make their design choice. And spend the time there wisely. Not to have to chase our tail just to have audio in the game. That doesn't make any sense. And the scale games are at this point, it's not really a feasible method of working anyway.
Right.
It also boils down to the type of team that you have at hand, right? So then the solution that you're reaching out might also be dependent on how the constitution of the people that you're working with is. So we didn't have a technical, an audio programmer in our team, or we didn't necessarily have any technical sound designer. So every sound designer had to become a little bit of a technical sound designer. And then the audio programming was like, how much can we get out of this very concise request that we might do to the tech team, so that then we don't need to come bother them anymore for a long time, right? So it's all about those choices. The same is true for the music system. The music system is widely or mainly designed inside of Wwise. That means that when the game team comes and says like, well, we would like to modify the music's behavior, then you need to also be smart about it, because suddenly there is no like how would you call it, queuing of the music tracks happening in the game side. It actually all happens inside of Wwise by randomly, you know, selecting different parts and so on and so forth. So exposing that has to actually be compatible with having the system be fully or mostly done inside of the middleware instead of outside of it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, couple of questions that I'd weave in through the chat if it's an interesting time.
Do you want to? Should we look at any more examples, or do we want to take questions? Doesn't matter really to me. It's up to you as the leader of this little session.
Well, I want more examples, because every time we soak in the environments and the gameplay, I'm just loving what I hear. So we can spin another example. We can jump into more to Wwise. And I just want you to know I have a couple of good questions queued up from the community.
Nice.
Thanks, folks who are hanging with us here during this, and keep them coming. We're tracking your questions, and we'll find the right fit for them
Absolutely,
as we continue to move through.
Yeah, and also I really want to stress, feel free to reach out. We have, names you can find. So feel free to reach out, both like, oh, hey, that was really cool, but also like, hey, Mattias, you're talking out of your whatever, because that's not in fact true. This is in fact true. We really want to have that conversation going, because very often someone somewhere has a really good solution to something that you haven't thought of. And that is true for all of us all the time. And I'm dead sure people in the audience now are going to be like, I know a much better way of doing that. And I'd love for you to tell me, because I'd love to steal that from you, basically. Because, you know, like I said, we are moving very fast with how technology develops, and we're not always completely sure on how to use it. Even, you know, looking back 5 years, we're not fully sure how to use the tech we had then efficiently now. So the more we share and talk solutions, I think it's to the betterment of everyone.
I mean, it circles back to this, if in fact, the Wwise Up on Air, right? Like we've watched a bunch of this, and we've also took, you know, a lot of inspiration from other people showing how they figure out ways in their own projects that might not be anywhere near how our projects look, but the mentality of it might actually be applicable, right?
Exactly.
So it's all about making sure that that community network is active. And we're very glad to be a part of that.
Yeah, and totally. And also, it's very important to mention that, like, even regardless of how long experience someone has, there are still better solutions out there, you know. I have no doubt that people who have worked, you know, very shortly in the industry or are completely new can come up with the, you know, super leanest, best, most awesome solution to something. And I think that's just great. I think there's a lot of fun to be had discussing middleware solutions with people in different forums. It's like the whole community is so supportive as well. You're just like, hey, I have this question. It might be super stupid. Can someone just help me? And you immediately get like 10 answers of people like, yes, of course. And like you can get people from, you know, the coolest people in the industry suddenly replying to your question. And like, oh, now I feel much less, you know, embarrassed about not knowing this, because apparently this person doesn't know it either. So now I feel fine about it. And that's kind of nice. I think it's a very welcoming and a nice environment to be in, for sure.
Nice. Well, again, great to have you here sharing your knowledge, contributing to that culture of knowledge share across the community. Again, there's a kind of refinement that comes with presenting something that is, you know, the right fit for your project, and really whittles it down to these, I'll say, simple solutions in some cases, because sometimes that simple solution is hard fought and won. You know, we go through a process of refinement to arrive at it, and I'm sure we could spend a lot of time talking about how you iterated towards this kind of a simplicity or
Yeah.
system. But at the same time, as you're encouraging, this conversation that expands outward from here is really just about trying to lift people up and arrive at the best sounding experiences no matter
Yeah.
what.
Totally, and like all of these processes are always sort of iterative no matter what you do, and acknowledging that fact. So like I don't expect anything to stay the same in our Wise project. It will change continuously, and that's how we approach it to begin with, and that's fine. But the same is true for any design solutions you have. Like anytime you make a design solution for something, I'm mostly, focusing on behaviors here, but it's true for designs as well, like asset designs as well. Always look at it and go, can I make this better? Can I make it faster? Can I make it leaner? Can I make it simpler? Can I explain it to someone? And like, if you find a way that makes any of those things easier, you should always opt to like, no, I can actually trim it down. I can make it more expandable. I can do this thing. I can make it less complex. Almost always the answer is, can I make this less complex and still achieve the same thing? That's your friend.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump back into some gameplay. I want to
Sure.
hear more of Europa Universalis V. What a great sounding experience. Where are we going next?
I'd like to show one more example just to show a difference in approach in doing these dynamic arrangements for the tracks. So the last one you saw was basically mixing stems in and out at opportune times. But this one in video form will be, you'll see immediately that it's much more complex in structure, but we have to respect the structure of the song. Therefore, we've had to place many custom cues for when specific instruments are allowed to come in and go out. And you'll see how that works here. Now we just have a soloist singer. This is our lowest intensity. The vocals and the solo vocals were there all the time. They were the carrying stem, but then you had the choir come in at the start of a phrase, and they were allowed to go out only at the end of a phrase. And the same thing was true for the woodwinds as well. So you have to treat each instrument as their own thing and think of how the performance of that instrument would be done in real life. Which to me was very exciting for us to work with, because you really get to dig down into the material and sort of enjoy all the aspects of it and try to imagine the performance of the piece, which then also goes hand in hand with our soloists, which we really wanted to emphasize the live nature of them. So in addition to recording them playing their instruments, playing the songs, we also recorded these small little improvisations that I showed you, which are both free form but also using melodic themes from the main soundtrack, but also we recorded the musicians handling their instruments, because anyone who's, sat at a recital, and you hear the musician shifting in their chair, picking up their instruments, maybe tuning it a bit. That's part of it being a physical experience. And since we are leaning into performances as authentic as they could be in a, as authentic space as we can make with reverb and soundscape, we wanted it to feel like an authentic performance as well. So we're actually randomizing how those things happen. So when the organist, between songs, the organist is going to adjust the drawbars, like stuff like that.
Fun.
Which really sort of leans into instruments as a carrier of history and culture, because that's a really strong signifier. If you want to represent the culture and you find an instrument that represents that culture, the artifact of the instrument itself is actually present now. You can actually have an instrument built that way, that exists now, and sound that way, and play a song from then, written by someone who was it's insane. In terms of authenticity, you can't get more authentic than that.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to really drill, that point home with having the handling of the instrument be part of the soundtrack as well.
And even when it comes onto the instrument in place, right, as we just described, the experience of actually listening to music in a specific place, it also makes a difference in how your memory of it is going to be. So if you listen to, I don't know, a loud in a church, right, it's going to sound as the place that you have listened to it at.
Yeah.
And if you are now rehearsing at home because you happen to be the performer of that instrument, then it's going to be a lot drier of an experience. That determines the outcome of it also. And if we can actually afford to change those contexts by virtue of having thought about it first, right? Maybe we should record all of the instruments as dry as possible so that we can in fact reuse them or place them as the game progresses. And all of these considerations were, basically what we tried to focus our attention on, right? We already knew that there were going to be a lot of music tracks. We already knew that there were going to be a lot of performances and a lot of different cultures. But how can we grab all of that and also make it as dynamic as possible, right?
Yeah.
By changing the performance of it in real time, by shifting the intensity, or by completely reworking the context where these instruments or these music pieces are actually playing at, right? And this is something that connects as well to the beginning or to the history of Paradox, right? Especially because we've always been renowned for having a lot of great music, and this music being mostly first and foremost an experience on itself, a linear experience, something that was kind of accompanying your game experience. You had the music, right? And it was almost always easy to kind of separate as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So we could in fact imagine someone listening to the soundtrack on its own. And we knew that in this case, we also wanted to make sure that people were able to achieve that. So that's kind of what took us into distribution, which is what you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So what you hear on the DSP version of these soundtracks, right? You can find them on Spotify and so on, or different streaming platforms. Then it will be a much more linear experience.
Yeah.
It's a designed experience. But in the game, we were we don't need to. We can actually afford to do it unique. Right?
Yeah. And kind of the subtext of that from the gameplay side, or from the game experience side, is that you're adding to the ways that people will hear this music. The different variations that they'll take from the intensity side of things, instruments that come in and out, soloists that come in and out.
We didn't even talk about spatial audio in regards to this. You can probably talk about how the music actually shifts in perception as well.
So we knew. So our sort of confines were that we knew we were going to get stereo deliveries, right? That was the first thing, and we knew that when we go out to record soloists, we want to record very specific people playing very specific instruments, and the likelihood that they're going to be oh yeah, I can do dynamic game music is low, because they're experts in performing linear pieces in an authentic manner, and that's what they should be doing, really. We're hiring them because they're experts in that, right? So they should be doing that, and we should take that and do what we can with it. So again, what we get is a delivery in stereo, but that doesn't limit us in what we can do with it. So what we do is that when it's lower intensity, we put it further away and actually in the rears.
Yeah.
So then your focus is on the map. But then as intensity goes up, it moves to the front and it comes closer and closer to you in the perceived 3D space. And when you then come up to a certain level of intensity, we switch to the orchestral soundtrack because it's more, emotionally high, or what do you want to call it?
Yeah.
We also have another meter, coincidentally, that counts how much time has passed since you last heard an orchestral piece. So if you're just sitting around at the lowest intensity, you're not going to get cultural tracks playing all the time. Once in a while, an orchestral track is going to pop in. So just for a very long attack time, basically. We're sending a constant sine tone to a meter with a very long attack time. And then after a while, it's going to pop in an orchestral track on the lowest intensity, but over time, you're still going to get this in and out, no matter what you're doing. If you're sitting still, you're going to get it. If you're doing a lot of stuff, you're going to get it. Like, whatever you're doing, whatever your playstyle is, this is going to happen. Is the intention, and it seems to have come across fairly decently, at least to the players. So it's basically us taking our tried and true format and seeing how can we sort of incrementally make this objectively more to the players. So we recorded a lot more music, but also like, yes, you're getting these things, and if you want the linear tracks, you can play the linear tracks back to back like you're used to. But also, if you want to, we're giving you this whole other dimension of what's going on, and just you wait until you play it in surround. Like, it's a big deal of just saying, like, there's many more things for you to explore in the sound world of this game than what you are used to from the previous title. And regardless of what we think of our work and the subjective beauty of whatever we do, I think it's really important to present something to players that you can stand behind and say, this is objectively better. Like, there's definitely more music this time.
Yeah. Well, and there's kind of an invisible agency that you give the player where their decisions, the context of where they're playing, listening, or what they're doing is shaping the mix in a way also, that they might not even understand, but that results in variation that helps for these extended gameplay sessions where you don't want to just hear that loop come back around, or you've heard it 100 times, but the context is different, and thus the presentation now is different.
Yeah, and also, like, we can't with a player base as dedicated and as sort of loyal as ours, we can't just chuck everything out and go a completely different direction. It sort of has to have a few certain things be true with it still. But what we can do is sort of nudge it towards showing them something they didn't think they wanted. Is sort of the hope of, like, let's push it, but let's not alienate people, basically.
Right.
And this is also coming from, recognizing, respecting the legacy of every other game, right? Because it's a little bit like the whole panel and all of the options. Like, we might in our wildest dream just be like, it's fine. Whatever we have said should be what you hear forever. But we know that people want to go in and tweak things, and we know that this is about what they are expecting as well. So it's about respecting that as well.
Oh, totally. And also, like, again, with those settings, it's like people were asking for the sliders, and they were asking for, like, we want some control of the music, and they're used to being able to just pick a track or pick the next track. And what we thought then was like, hold on. That's what they're asking for, but you know what? We can actually provide more options to them. We can actually give them something more here and say, like, yes, you're getting that you're asked for, but you're also getting this thing that you didn't think of, that we want to give you and present to you as, something that for you to enjoy, for you to customize your experience with. And that, middleware to a large extent is what enables us to do this. The whole music system happens completely in Wwise. This basically, like, we start it at the start of the game, and then it just runs.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. State-based and constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in this case, it's not even state-based. Oh, wait, it is actually. We shift between a war suite and a peace suite, but that's pretty much the only state we use for the music state machine. Everything else is driven by the internal logics of the meter and the timing.
Amazing.
So it's like you can do a lot.
Cool.
That's the baseline.
Oh, amazing. Well, what a great conversation today.
Thank you.
Having a lot of fun digging into these systems. You know, I'll weave in a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I got one that I think might be short, and I got one that I think might go long. So let's start with a question about modding. What about the community out there who are looking to extend the games that you make?
Yeah.
What kind of considerations are you making there for EU5 and maybe into the future? You know, how do you think about that in these contexts?
That's a great question, and modding is super important to Paradox games in general. Like it's we have a very active and collaborative community doing amazing things. So either you can see, there's two ways of seeing it really. So we've created a music system that works for what we made it for, but and we can expand that as the base game moves along. But with behavioral systems, designing them for malleability in mods is difficult. So what we can do to modders, and we over time will do, is we will try to provide external sources for the things that can have external sources. That's one thing that we're working on long term to get in. So we have been very focused on getting the game out. And there's, you know, we will get to this. And
okay. And I just want to mention 25.1 adds Wave support for external sources. So
that's very good.
Yeah, we have a hack for that, but yeah, that's even better.
Okay, how about native in 25.1 moving forward?
Perfect.
Okay,
that's amazing.
Cool.
That's amazing.
That's one thing we want to provide for ease of access, for like UI stuff, for like unit stuff. Just make sure people can do whatever we do, but with a WAV file then. But then also what we are aiming to do long term is provide a skeleton stripped down version of the project that just retains all the metadata and all the all the connections to the game, but it's up to you to design whatever music system you want to design.
Wow. That sounds great.
The hope is that presentations like this and presentations in the future can then embolden the community to actually design reactive systems themselves, because it is in fact at their fingertips right here right now. They don't have to get any fancy tech. They already have a gazillion scripting options in our engine for modding anyway, and they can leverage those to create any music system they want. With any music they want.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Okay, then that question was coming from the community, from Edward Zach Johnston, who I think, Franco, you may have spoke with in the past, Mattias.
Absolutely.
So this next one gets a little more philosophical, coming again from Guido. Guido, thanks for the great questions. For folks out there who might be new or intrigued with these new audio experiences, what are the next boundaries that you think should be pushed in audio? Like where do we need to continue to work? I find folks who are new to the industry are often hungry to find those edges and push past them. So if there were places that you felt like needed to be explored further, what are you thinking?
I feel like I'm just gonna try to put something together and see what you say. But I feel like the longer I work in the industry, the more it boils down less to tech and more to philosophy and approach. It's a super boring answer, and it's not what you want to hear as someone coming in. But because you want to hear like, this is the newest cutting edge tool, and if you learn how to use that, everything's gonna be fine, and you can do the coolest things. and it's very easy to go down that path, and sometimes people can excel, in exemplary ways, and it's definitely something that contributes a lot. But many of the gains that we are making as a team, and that I've seen teams I've worked with in the past make, are in fact about philosophical and workflow choices, and making sensible curative decisions along the way, which, like, the good thing about it is that they're available to everyone. We can all talk about it, and we can all be smart about what we do and how we do it. And I think all that comes down to is doing something and doing it over and over again, and doing it a little bit better each time. So, like, go through your entire process. Don't get stuck in your DAW. Go from A to Z in a game. Download a demo project, whatever, and do that once, and like, okay, I got it working, great. Do it again. Just the same thing, and just keep doing it, because you're gonna notice what you want to do better and how you want to do it better, and then it's gonna get better and better. And it doesn't even have to be cool spatial audio features. It can be like, I really want to drill down in how to squeeze the most out of a single random container.
Mm-hmm. But I would also connect onto understanding the medium that we are in, right? Like, interactive audio is so different to linear audio, and this actually enables us to think almost in 4D, because one of the things that had been done tremendously for this project specifically, and definitely some of the great work that the sound designers in our team have done, is to use Wwise almost as the actual DAW itself, right? So basically put a lot of the sounds playing inside of Wwise, and then use the recorder in Wwise to get content out that you would then trigger at different points, right? Instead of like pre-assembling the different events that you would expect on a timeline, and then get an export out of that, is basically just say, like, I have people coughing, cats or whatever, and then let's just actually get an event that plays all of them randomly with some delay, with some probability, with some altercations, and capture that. And now this is my new stuff. This is my new content that I can then bring in, right? And this happened to be almost something that a lot of people don't take for granted, the fact that there is, in fact, this capabilities, this little tools inside of the middleware, right, that you can take advantage of, because it's not just a debugger, it's that let me just record, let's see what the loudness over time is, so let's just put this in the master bus and get over with. It's like, no, wait, you can actually use it creatively. Right, so that is the approach. Sometimes the best enhancements or advancements in audio tools are just in front of you, and then you just need to figure out how to tweak them or use them in a peculiar way. Right?
Definitely, it's a lot. A lot of it revolves around just exploring and getting used to your specific middleware and how to get the most out of it. And we actually made all of our wallas the way that Franco explained. So we recorded bits and pieces of nondescript talking, and then we just put them in space. First in space, and then we realized we shouldn't do that, shouldn't be surround, and then we started doing mono stuff instead. But same principle applied. Like, we realized we can't do all the languages in the world. That's especially not historical languages. Let's just not do that. And so we recorded nondescript stuff instead. Like a lot of vocalizations that are not speech, but we also did a lot of speech, which is just like, we had people come in and speak unintelligibly here, and then we put it on top of each other, and when there's enough, you can tell that it's garbled.
Amazing. And this is really that technique of leveraging the Wwise recorder on a bus, grabbing the designed behavior of something like voice or groups of people walking as footsteps, for different levels of footstep intensity maybe. And so that Wwise recorder, almost render pipeline.
Oh, totally.
I'll throw one more in there because you're talking about this idea of designing from the start in Wwise. And another feature we added in 25.1 is the new media pool.
All right.
Which gives you access to your sample libraries inside of Wwise and the new media pool view, along with your originals, and then just gives you a straight shot into your project hierarchies from your sample libraries with some cool bells and whistles. So I think we're firmly with you with this idea that interactive audio is fundamentally different than linear. And if you can stay close to your tools, design for the medium in context. And that goes back to being connected in real time with our live editing and live media transfer workflow. You know, now you've got that iteration that you're talking about, trying to achieve, you know, as part of a practice of understanding. And I think that, I think that was a great answer. You gave great answers to that question about where someone should focus.
I want to give a real shout out to the randomization avoidance features in Wwise, because they really stand out. Like, it's still the best tool for me to avoid repetition is using the built-in tools in Wwise, and that says something. Yeah. Because it's not like it's the most advanced thing; they just do the right thing. We even decided, in fact, we designed our horse walk cycles in Wwise because it was a hell of a lot easier doing it there compared to doing it in a DAW. Yeah. So all of our gallops and trots and whatnot, it's like that's 5 seconds. If you have individual steps, it's 5 seconds to set up in Wwise, and then you can just render whatever length you need with whatever variation you want.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of other cases where we actually used Wwise instead of using other tools that you typically would expect to be the you know, the ones that you would typically go for doing that. You know, similar, I don't know, sound particles, for example, right? Like simulating or reproducing some of that inside of Wwise gives you the ability to, you know, pretty much do all of that stuff that you would have otherwise done inside of that experience, but with the ability to also modify it according to certain specific cases for your game. And then, you know, boiling all down to reusing the content, working from small to large as much as possible. You guys have done, you know, have you putting years and years of work onto Strata, and we were some of the early adopters of Strata. And I think that one of the reasons we always wanted to be close to that was not necessarily for how the Strata workflow was, but because of the mentality behind it, right? Like opening up to looking at how actual sound design is not just, you know, the result that you hear. It's constructed of multiple layers and multiple parts, and all of these parts you can listen to them individually, right? And we almost, you know, use that we use Strata to actually decode that mentality and then bring all of this stuff, like almost the little pieces, into this sound design workflow inside of Wwise, and let Wwise create that again in a way, right? So yeah.
And also a benefit of doing those things in Wwise as opposed to a standalone software or a plugin is that while you're doing it in Wwise, you're also learning the tool, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm doing this inside of Wwise instead of in a sampler, for instance, in my DAW, that means that I keep repeating the patterns in my brain of how to set this randomization that I want up in my dominant tool for doing my job, which is my middleware. So that's a good side effect with doing it in Wwise instead of on a DAW as well.
Well, and I don't know if this has been your experience, but for me, Wwise is kind of like chess or Go, and it's like, okay, I can pick this up, I can play it, and wow, there's a lot here, and I can go really deep at some point, and you know, find magic buttons that I've never imagined existed to do exactly the thing that I'm imagining. But there's a depth to it that does have a benefit in exploration. And reaching for these ideas.
And this, what you're talking about now, it's especially true for Atmos work, where since Wwise has been geared towards dealing with 3D space from the ground up, it's already prepared for every workflow you could imagine when it comes to Atmos, as opposed to a linear DAW or a, you know, whatever. I haven't been using tools other than Wwise because I haven't had to, but the whole, you know, all the concepts are there, all the tools are there. You've already used them for, you know, 10-15 years with Wwise, so all you do now is just tell them to be an audio object instead of being a 3D object, and it's the same. So that's also, like, if we're talking about the development of the industry, I'm longing for, you know, the time when movie audio is delivered in middleware format and it actually adapts to my speakers I have at home. Thank you. That would be nice. And also, you know, doing Atmos mixes of music in Wwise is like at least getting something really good really fast is very easy to do in Wwise without any other tool. like we've sort of started experimenting with what we can do in Atmos with music. Like we said, we're moving it back and forth.
Yeah.
But the whole intro sequence, in fact, is with the stems being spread out, and one coming from there and one coming in from there, and then like moving out around in space, and some of them being higher up, and like trying to just sort of, again, like just like squeeze whatever we can out of it and see what happens if we do something. And that step of like see what happens step, that's immediately available because you've already been doing this a million times when you play anything else in space, and you're just doing it again now with a new thing, which has been one of those, like I wouldn't say scared, but like it was a complete black box going into Atmos, and like we kept asking people like, how do you do it? What's the best way of getting at this thing? And and everyone just says like, we don't really know. And then we started doing stuff, and it's like, oh, I don't know either. What's going on? I don't know. And then like eventually, again, it just circles back to like I put that thing there, and it sounded nice. That was nice, and that was about it. And I felt really stupid, like. Why didn't I just do this to begin with? It's like you can just do it, and like it seemed reasonable, but I'm like, no, it has to be something super complex. And it's not. Just take the thing and put it there, and it's great.
Well, one thing though that I would say in terms of advancements of tools and something that we could even like bring back onto you guys in Audiokinetic to kind of like explore more. We have discussed this behind closed doors as well with you, but like the sandbox mentality of like trying to author in the middleware before it hits the game, because sometimes the Soundcaster is great for certain scenarios, but sometimes it takes too many hands to modify too many different parts of it to really represent what's in the end going to happen in the game. So figuring out a way to kind of like simulate a bit more of that game world for authoring reasons and for creating those sort of worlds, it's something that I think we can still improve a lot on. And we're certainly trying our very best with sequencing and with Soundcaster setups and so on and so forth. But I think that's that's, and the other thing is also true. Like a lot of experimentations with triggering or posting events to Wwise from DAW, right? From Reaper, for example, with plugins. All of those things are super cool to see. And definitely the improvements are there. Like it's just about expanding them further, I think.
And we're listening, right? This idea of expanding on that simulation side of Wwise, right? The Soundcaster being a great place, having parameters, state switches, and other things within reach. We're here. We've had that. And some of these other pieces you're talking about, grouping game parameters to a single knob that you can turn, or presenting a three-dimensional sandbox as you suggest. These are definitely things that we're interested in, trying to find the right fit over time for. And again, we're here listening, and great to get the inspiration from folks like you who are reaching for these as part of your workflows in Wwise.
What I think has been very apparent from this process is how stable the sort of main trunk of working with Atmos is in Wwise. So like how it handles what you tell it to do, you can rely on. Most of our sort of difficulties have been from like quality of life stuff, like, oh, I can't have a preset for that panel, or like I can't. It's too many clicks to get to that place. Like it's more along those lines rather than like, oh, it doesn't fall down the way it should, or like I can't control this thing, because we have found that you can, and you can trust it to do its thing, which is the beauty of it. It's like this is why I'm talking about movies as well, because like nothing bugs me as much as listening to something in headphones that was mixed for a TV, and it's like that's not where that thing is on screen. Can you just put it where it is?
But even on TV, like the other day, the halftime show happened, and actually it was delivered in spatial audio.
Oh, cool! That's nice.
I was checking this out, and I was like, oh my god, this actually came live in spatial audio.
Wow.
So it's definitely here.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Amazing. Well, let's keep living in the future. What do we have left? We have more? Are we digging digging deeper?
We have one more example with the music, basically just showing how the meter reacts.
Okay.
And we could also just try to go into the nitty-gritty of exactly how it's set up if we want to.
I'm here for
because actually it had to be 2 cascading meters into each other just to make it really interesting. Because we wanted to make it available to the player, right? So it can't be just one, because they need to be able to override it. So it has to be 1 meter actually in fact affecting another meter. But the short story is, meters is a USP of Wwise. And if we made them a little more usable and a little more agnostic, and for instance made them not having to go the route around the sine tone to make them react to something, and just actually delivering pure data, you know, with a linear scale maybe could be nice if we're dealing with data. Some of those things, then it's also one of those things where it's like, okay, then I can actually have one parameter coming from the game, but I can branch it out to these different parameters that I want to react a different way, because it's actually based on health, but I want the thing for that thing to go down slower, and like there's a bunch of stuff suddenly just available to you. So I want, you know, to encourage people to explore what meters can do, but also, like, funnily enough, what looks like one of the simplest tools is actually one of the most powerful ones. In Wwise, it looks like, oh, I can know how loud something is, and that's what it's for. And it's like, no, you can do a whole lot more with it if you want to. We can look at the example of just like seeing it move in real time and see what it does. I think it's in this video. Yeah, it is. So now we're just starting the music system, and it's a cultural soloist. And
so they're tuning.
And down here you see a meter. So now we changed our rooms.
Now there's a contextual image.
Yeah. And now we're doing something important, and you see this.
So that's the little glass pouring in.
And the soloist stops at the end of a phrase.
Because it was really intense.
And then the orchestral soundtrack comes in. And then the meter starts slowly trickling down. So that's just a very quick demo of what the how the meter works.
Yeah, and this song in particular, there's a moment when there is a little bit of percussion happening, right, and all that. And if the intensity is at high, then the percussion is obviously there. But as soon as you start like dropping, because you're thinking now, and you might not be actually doing much, then it goes back to this, right? Because that's naturally one of the lowest levels of intensity of that track.
So the carrier of the theme of this track is the woodwinds and this is the one you heard before. It's the woodwinds and the soloist. So that's our most stripped down version. Is just them basically, and a low harp. But then you can go up to full orchestra.
And so there were two instances, right? You had the soloist, which was just, you're fully immersed in the world, in the context, in your culture, right? You're doing things, you're thinking about it. You are more about what does my world sound like, rather than what is happening in the game. And then at some point you start going for like, well, this is happening and this is happening, and then the game realizes that now this is no longer about what happens in your vicinity. It might actually now be about what happens in the world, right? So someone might have declared war with you, or someone might have taken over your trade routes, or something that is actually significant enough to pull you out of that and into someone else's fantasy, or another fantasy of the story that is happening in front of you. So then the extra-diegetic music is more important, because then music carries the story forward as well. That's why the OG soundtrack comes in, right? And it comes with a specific story to tell that is being developed or composed by the composer himself. And it has an arc, as any music piece will have, right? And then that arc is going to be told, but it's also going to react according to how the game is and how you interact with the game. And then once all of that is done, you might go back to your culture and your, your vicinity and your world, your most immediate world.
Yeah, amazing. And again, like such a effective way to help to pull that focus or push that intensity in a way that starts small and contextual with where the player is, and then expanding that into this larger emotional thematic moment.
Yeah, and also not being afraid to move in and out of the diegesis, I think, was
Yeah.
a key component here. Like, it's fine to experiment with what it means and where you are and where the music is coming from, and it can still be a cohesive experience. You don't have to pick one or the other. You can actually let it flow pretty freely, which is nice, especially when dealing with sort of authentic music. It's like it does lend a lot of weight to it. It's been a lot of fun working with that.
Cool. All right, well, let's jump into this system. I know that it's always a pleasure when we get to watch the navigation of a Wwise project. So take us through it.
Yeah, so we have two drivers here, and just as you see, I've had to adapt this to make the scale feel more linear. I had to do some hacks.
Sure.
But basically, we have a dynamic boredom driver. Let's look at the action meter instead, actually. Dynamic one, great. So this will listen to the sine tones we heard, but if I'm correct, let's see if I am. Yes, it is actually muted when you have chosen your static approach.
Got it.
The actual meter that's actually listening to what you're doing is up here. But what we feed into it is either going to be your dynamics, which is based on the sine tones, or your manual one, which is in the settings menu.
I see.
And that's purely driven by a slider.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But all it's getting, if you look at the references, is a perpetual sine tone. So it's just maxed out, and all you can do is set how loud it's supposed to go into the thing.
Perfect.
And since our main meter that's listening for the intensity you want, or the game says it wants, since that has an attack time, even if you go like this with the slider, it's not going to react that way because it's not musical. It has to be allowed to come in and go out at a certain pace for us to have time, for the conductor to actually, because no conductor would do that. They would go like this.
And that's what we see in the right-hand panel with the music VCA intensity properties. You've got the slew rate interpolation mode there.
So it's a balancing act between the interpolation modes for the parameters and the attack and release for the meter, which makes this difficult to balance, but it also gives you a lot of options of how you want what thing to react. So we used to have only the single meter and the sine tones, but then someone directed us, some director person said, no, we should give the player the option. That was me. It was me making. I'm not being that mean to someone else. Said like, oh no, we need an override, and then suddenly we needed to split it into two. But like you can do this, but you can do it a lot simpler. This was just to like, okay, if we want to give them manual control using the same principle, we still just need one meter because we have the same bucket, but we need to affect it in different ways, and then it turned into that whole thing. So that's basically how that works.
Amazing.
And I mean, one thing that could be fun for people, again, talking about how accessible it is to make something cool. Like 10 years ago, convolution reverb was super expensive and you had to be really mindful with how you use it. And I would say that's not the case anymore. And I would say that because we don't care. We just have everything running all the time and bring it in and out, and we're fine. Cool. So all our reverbs are, if I can find them. So here are local context reverbs. We have 4 exterior ones running, and we have a lot, 6 interior ones running at any given time. And to be able to move seamlessly between them, we have to do that. This is just for our local context. Then we have 2 more for our map. And we just leave them running. We don't have to disable it. We started with trying to disable it, but we couldn't get it flowing nicely. So then what if we just don't disable them and just have them running? Can we afford that? And apparently we can, and we don't have to care, and we can just go. And they're just there, and we hard set them in events, and suddenly we have in-game reverb, even though we don't have game-defined aux sends at all. We only have user-defined aux sends, but it's enough for what we do, since we have discrete scenes. And then on the map, we have a scanner that looks at, because a lot of the stuff you see on the map is actually shader based and not object based.
Yep.
So then it looks at the terrain below you and see what types of terrain it is.
Yep.
And then it sets certain parameter based on that. So we know roughly how much vegetation is there. We know roughly how much ocean is there, how much coast is there. And then we can change stuff based on that. So basically our map reverb, our world context then for a reverb, is a field or a forest that crossfade depending on vegetation density. And then if we have a much city on the map, which again is just a, do we have many city sounds? Then we're going to put in some, with a meter, put in some city reverb. And that's that.
Bam.
It doesn't have to be more, more than
Right.
that. And the more city reverb we have, the more we bring down the others. So we have equal loudness across the board because we can do grouped sort of equal power fades, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, it looks super straightforward, but it does exactly what you want it to do with a game like ours. Like, it doesn't have to be more. The most important thing, it's one of those things where, like, remember we talked about the most important thing is that the sound is there at all.
Yeah.
Well, the most important thing with in-game reverb is that you have an in-game reverb at all. And you could actually have one and still then be like, okay, at least then I can put things in perspective because I have an in-game reverb that I can drive dynamically.
Yeah.
And that alone is worth the whole, just put one in. Don't even wait for code. Just put it in.
And I love this idea of not optimizing until you have to. Like when it comes to this idea of simultaneous convolutions, it's like, yeah, a person who is thinking hard about resources might optimize first and ask questions later. And depending on the resources you have available, maybe it's easier to just build the system and worry about optimizing it later if you have to, because in the case that you presented, hey, this is not as big a deal as we thought it was, and you have the resources to stretch out and just let all those reverbs flow and create that transparent and seamless environmental effect.
Yeah, and I also think that, this is famous last words, but I feel like we're sort of in many ways, we're way beyond the point where other choices become more important than, say, voice count. We're at a point now where when you reach a limit of how many voices you can actually run, your mix choices will have limited them before that point anyway. So it's a non-issue. Just go nuts, because you don't want 50 birds anyway.
Actually, that's something that you can show, because I think it is actually quite important and sometimes overlooked. Voice limitation and on actors and even like on buses as well. And
totally. So what we're doing is that for each of these guys, actually, just because I said it, it's not on that guy. Let's see if we find something where it actually is in place. I might have removed them. What a cheeky guy. But we have this type of approach. Maybe I put them on the buses.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think that's why I was saying check on the buses themselves.
That sounds smarter.
There we go.
Thank you, past me. That was a smarter choice. So,
and it all comes down to what you were saying before. It's like, I don't want to limit it on the level of the actor, because the actor might be used in several cases.
I did what I said I wanted to do. That's great, man.
But what you know for sure is what am I outputting to?
Exactly.
And the team keeping each other honest here, communication right here.
But I know my brain. This is how it works. I'm gonna do this all the time, so I have to be really friendly to future me. And go this is a good way of doing it. You're gonna remember. It's gonna be fine. Either way. So this is a mixed choice. It's not really a performance choice. It's a mixed choice. There's no point in us having more than this. The rule of three is something that comes up in Foley, and you can sort of apply that pretty harshly to games. It becomes ridiculous pretty fast, and since we can cascade priority and we can cascade voice count, that means that you can have a very, very malleable, very streamlined way with very few entry points, but still get an extremely cohesive quote-unquote dynamic mix. It's not really, it is a mixed choice, I guess, for it not to be there, but you don't really have to do really advanced stuff. It's just I can't hear the difference when it's more than this, so let's not do that.
Yeah.
That's basically the choice you're making.
I think you've identified it a couple times during this conversation about the benefit of voice limiting as a mix decision.
Totally.
And I think that whether we start to bring up priority scaling of that, whether we just lean into, bus versus voice, where that's authored. I'll throw one more wild card at you, and that's in 25.1, we added event limiting and cooldown. So now you'll have the ability to...
cooldown as well.
Yeah, now you'll be able to say how many of these events globally are game object scoped and put a cooldown on it. So, don't play any more of these for 300 milliseconds or whatever.
No more hacking the music system then.
Hey, exactly. Tiny victories. And so, but this idea of limiting as mixed decision, I think is a strong stand because it really does thin out the mix in a way that supports what you want to hear.
And again, it goes back to philosophy and in this case all the way back to linear design. It's like you make a curative choice of what you want your focus to be, and then you make hard cuts to achieve that. And the beauty of having voice limits is that when we have the space, we can allow this. Like if all we have is quiet sounds, we might want 10. But if we also have loud, we want less, because the louder ones are more... Like, you can always make it work quite easily. And in our case, the voice limit is in fact a randomization feature, if you remember, because we're discarding newest. So we're only allowing the first few to start, which means that even if we list 20 loud sources, you're only going to get a handful, and they're going to be different every time, because all of them have a random start delay. So, and I think this is the case with middleware in many ways. Like, you can look at a tool and see what it's made to do, but almost always there's secondary and tertiary functions that you can leverage to make your life easier in another way.
Yep, that's it. Knowing what's in the box and how to use it. Nice. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, what you just mentioned, right? Like, in all of these different buses, you might actually have different limitations on the amount of instances. Then that all goes onto the contextual ambience urban, and then that all goes onto the contextual ambience itself, the bus itself. So all of this is part of the dynamic mixing happening basically for free, right? By setting it up right and setting it up the right way. So it's all about, as you said, the future you and saving time in the long run for how much this is going to...
It's basically setting your system up so that you can avoid making a choice in the future, because you've already made the choice.
I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up.
And then, like I said, we have certain buses that fall down, but typically we try not to do that, because again, like, we can afford a lot more objects than we actually need. So like, we don't have to... I was really like, another one of those things like, oh, how are we to manage audio object count, and then like, what if we don't have to manage it? And it's like, no, we didn't. Okay, then great. So we didn't.
There's another one.
And it's not more difficult for us than that. You might have a very different case in your game depending on your needs and tech and whatever. But in our case, it's not been an issue. We just let it do its thing, and it does the thing, and it's great.
Yeah, and then it is true that, as we look into forward explorations with spatial audio and having into consideration the difference between HDMI bandwidth versus headphone output in terms of objects, that is also some of the limitations that we didn't want to have to focus on. We didn't want to have to think, is this going to be on a console or on a PC? Is it going to be listened through headphones or through an HDMI decoder that might run out of bandwidth? Like, we just wanted to, can we just not think about that at all and let it do its thing and hope that it's like as best as possible? And that's been always the exploration. Like, at some point, as you said, Damien, if we realize, we probably need to go and start tweaking this because it's not the desired outcome, then we will. But up until then, we'll try to let it run its course and see how it sounds, essentially, right?
like again,
Yes.
because like if we can make a choice to make something endpoint agnostic, that's always the right choice to make.
Yeah.
And then like until we're proven wrong, then we're just gonna keep doing that.
Yeah.
Basically.
And you have the controls to make those decisions, like in some of the cases where you are forcing a mix to a configuration.
Yeah.
You know, it's
But
there.
then it's for a behavioral decision.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
like we need to do that because we need to be able to do the shift. If we didn't have to do that shift, I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't
Yep.
have to, right? So it's always like that's the beauty of having a hierarchy like the one in Wise as well, is that you can make a very purposeful injection of behavior design at the level where it is appropriate.
Yeah.
And only there. So you have like minute control over a whole part of your design with one, checkbox or one movement or one RTPC automation or like whatever.
Totally.
And just be mindful not to be over enthusiastic and do it everywhere. But
Future you will hate you if
exactly.
you do that.
Think about future you. What would future you say? Future you would be disappointed. That's what they would be.
Amazing. Okay, we're rounding up close to the 3-hour mark, folks. If you're still with us out there, throw some questions in if there's something that you want to explore. I think, do we have one more gameplay session in us? Is there something else to drop
I mean,
into?
sure, we can just jump in and see where we are, right?
Yeah.
See what happens if the game is still running and it hasn't crashed on me. But it seems like it actually is still running.
Maybe you want to go from the beginning, go to the new game, and
sure.
let's actually just like showcase how it all starts, and maybe choose another culture and see how that changes a bit.
Nice.
Because all of these are always very interesting parts of the workflow. It's like, how do we reset the world every time we are going back to the main menu? This have been conversations we have had many times in other previous games as well. And we'll see again how this reacts now. This is live, folks. So
this is typically a critical moment when you have a development build. Going back to menu.
Okay, and the music keeps going.
And then it's gonna kick back to the overture, which is what plays in the menu. Hopefully I don't have to go through the loading screen, because that's an important factor actually that I didn't mention. We front load all our content. We don't do any loading runtime. It all happens before you start the game. So we stream all our music assets, but everything else is in memory all the time. So
that makes sense.
Meant that we, again, we are pretty harsh with our compression settings. Because we wanted to keep it down, and then we just went, how hard can we go without us audio people being annoyed? And then like, can we have that setting across the board? And we noticed we could, except for horns in the music, because they're very complex overtones, so they turned into just garbage. So then we upped it for the music and the music alone, but that's it. So it's another one of those like, how simple can we make it? And then we did that. This seems to have died on me.
I think so.
Well, while that's restarting, maybe it's interesting to explore this question from the chat. Thanks again, Guido. Good to have you here. Talking past and future, how much of this systems design was addressed during pre-production or kind of unfolded in time? Or are there things that you needed to rethink as you were approaching the end, like systems that you went back in for a big redesign on?
I wouldn't say a big redesign. Hold on, I'm just going to try and mute the game when it kicks up so it doesn't deafen you. There we go.
Kind of love it, though.
Yeah, it's great. That booted very quickly. I'll just answer the question first.
Yeah.
So it's very easy when people do presentations that it sounds like they knew what they were doing all the time. That's a lie. They did not. I think acknowledging that fact and going into it and approaching it as the importance of an iterative process and sort of allowing yourselves to have that and allowing yourself to reevaluate. And to be able to do that, you have to design for malleability and scalability and adjustments, right?
Yeah.
So my recommendation when going into a project like this would be to look at, I wouldn't say future-proofing, but like, can I design my assets in a way so that if I choose to use them a different way, I can?
Yeah.
Like, not locking you into a paradigm.
Yeah.
When you build your stuff from the ground up.
Yep.
Like, if I just take this actor and move it to a different part of my hierarchy, can I just do that and it still works? Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Can I just import a new one and it works immediately? Yes, I can. Great. Like, looking at how to make that iterative process fast, because quality in your designs, both of behavior and assets, will rely on how many iterations you have time for.
Well
so
said.
if you set yourself up to design your processes so that you can do many iterations fast, it will inevitably be better. Worst thing you can do is lock yourself to a paradigm, get stuck in it, and only do one iteration.
Yep.
Because then all you learned doing that, you did not have time to apply.
Yep.
So that's how we try to approach building the project itself as
Nice.
well. Like, okay, let's make something happen in this regard, evaluate it, let's do it again, evaluate it, do it again, evaluate it, and then we find the answers to these questions. And like, we started with stuff that was more complex. Then it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't really add anything. It's just super clunky to work with. Can we get rid of it? And it's like, oh yeah, we could. That's great. Let's get rid of it then. Like, we didn't need that. That's great. Like this whole like, oh, enabling, disabling reverbs. No, you don't have to do that. Okay, that's great. Let's stop doing that then and not bother, not worry about it and not spend time on it. But the only way you can find that is by doing it once and then doing it again. Because if you don't finish doing it once, you won't know, and you really want to do it again to do it better.
Yeah,
The
I'll throw
game
in there
is-
that connected runtime piece too. Now that we have live editing and live media transfer, like I'm imagining you're playing the game connected with Wwise. You come up to one of those events that the game is automatically posted for a new panel. It doesn't have anything in it. Well, you're connected. You know what that event is now. You can create that event without disconnecting. You can start throwing in these common actions, or maybe even grabbing all of the actions for a similar panel to hear, oh, this works, but it doesn't have cows in this scene, or there's no ocean to the left, or oh, there is an ocean, but it's to the right. I'll just tweak that, and it gives you, in the context that you built, that ability to now iterate at runtime.
Yeah, and in our case, we're on an older version of Wwise, but still, as long as we have the event in place, we can always live edit the event. That's fine. Disconnect, edit it, reconnect, and the event connection is in the sound bank, so it can just run. That's fine. So even if you would happen to be stuck or like for some reason be in an older version, you're not blocked from that philosophy and workflow at all. I'm going to see if I can get the game up on your screen. I go here and I go share and I go there. And then I just need to do this as well. Hold on a second. This is our green screen.
Recommended, maybe?
Yes. And here we can pick one of the recommended countries. So we can pick maybe Castile.
Yeah, sure.
And then you get like, you can tells you what your style would be if this have a loading screen. Loading screens have ambiences. like I said, we front load everything. So this is where we pause for a bit.
That's why it was very important to have the music going, to have some sort of like ambience happening, so that it could be an experience on its own, even if it's going to be for a bit. Something that we also learned from other titles that we've done before, where maybe this was not the case, and then it was even more of a pause, right? So at least here you get to listen to. Fun story on there, like the overture music was actually a lot longer, because the loading screen originally, whilst we were developing it, was a lot longer. And then we realized once we were getting close to release that the overture was longer than the actual loading screen. So we were like, okay, well, if you happen to stay for too long, then you'll get it full. But it was always designed with that in mind, so it was fun.
Yeah, no one's complaining about shorter load times. And,
exactly, right?
And yeah, if that means you don't hear the whole overture, then you can always come back.
But then you can hear how now the loading screen has changed. And suddenly have the marching band.
We started actually with trying to adapt the startup. We noticed that we can't rely on the length of the loading screens. We have to let it just play.
Yeah. Okay, we need you to take the volume of the game down maybe 10 notches. And then we'll see how the balance comes back.
But it seems like
you can do it directly from the master in the main menu as well.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's it.
Let's do this.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, let's try it at, I would say 90%. It was just a little bit loud, so not
and it was
bad.
also on purpose because it was the startup, right? And then the game goes down.
Now we're actually
you're getting hyped. That's because you're getting hyped for this battle.
So here we're at the coast. So at the coast we can hear seagulls. But that's based on the data we talked about before.
Yeah, nice.
So if we go in here, you don't hear seagulls anymore.
Perfect.
And you hear sounds from the little mine down here.
With some contextual ambience as well, with not ambience, reverb as well, kicking in.
Yeah. And maybe we can do something. Maybe do something here. Now I'm bribing someone.
Changing some of your values for the nation. And now, as you can see, also the music has stopped, right? So this is the ebb and flow of the music density and
automate my trade. Look at mine.
Oh, the UI sounds are great.
Thank you. And here are our different goods. This happens to be cows, so we hear cows. But if we want to look at other goods, maybe cloth. Now we're in the cloth, little cloth workshop, where people are moving their stuff around. And here's our cultural music coming in.
So this is European music, so therefore it has European-alike elements. So we have some archetypical descriptions that we use to balance it all out.
And what you heard there was a little stinger that we have on some pop-ups, where there's a culturally dependent little thing in the key of the song you're hearing when it's orchestral and when Justin's soloist, because sometimes they're also I'm gonna lower the volume a little bit more. Sometimes depending on what culture we're dealing with, it might or might not be in a Western style scale, right? It might be in something that's like We don't know that because we don't, we're dealing in a Western context, and not all of our performances will be.
Yeah, you can check that out later on if you go for the different albums that we've released. There's one where you basically can see the different archetypical cultures that we're talking about, and then you'll have the Iroquois and the Ashanti and Decca and so on and so forth. And all of these are obviously representative of different parts of the map.
Amazing. I'm going to take us back to the menu. We're going to take the music down 2 notches.
Sure.
We're just mixing for the live stream right now. You have all the knobs, so we're just gonna tweak it so that we have the best presentation. It's awesome.
See, now this is happening. Let's see what happens. Oh, it went there. That's interesting. Why did it go there? Something happened.
Anyhow, I think it's good of a representation there.
Okay, take us down. No, you can leave the master up, but take the music down just 3 notches. Yeah, that's cool. Let's try that.
This is also more than.
Great. This is like real-time mixing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Nice.
I can hear Luther hammering his, whatever that is in English, the church door.
Cool. Yeah, well, again, I think it's interesting. We've talked a lot about ambiences, framing these 2D elements, how that abstracts into 3D space. And as we're playing now, I'm just so tuned to the user interface and that interaction. And there's such a rich depth and legacy, across all of the games Paradox has made.
Yeah.
But UI is like the star a lot of times in these games. So you're putting a lot of precision and focus on making these appropriate. How much dynamism do you build into that? Or is there a balance between having to, give player feedback versus that variation that we've been talking about on the rest of the live stream, where it's like, we want to diversify the sounds you hear so you don't get tired of the repetition, whereas UI is like communicating. And is there a line there that you think about?
So the hero of our games is always music. Like that's the big thing that people talk about and the experience. But then the next pillar would be UI sounds, feedback on interactions you make, and feedback on decisions you make. And one thing we noticed with this game is that if we have a base suite of UI interaction sounds, which is our clicks and our clacks and our backs and our forwards and our buttons and all that, if we keep that pretty level and like and short and neat, then we have a lot. When we want something big, we have a lot more space. Move low end, we have a lot more space for that in the music. If we, let's see if I can just do this. Yeah, so I cheated a bit. So this is our Chinese cultural music, just to get some variation.
Great.
So we made sure that we kept those pretty thin and discrete in that manner as well, so that when you do something that matters, we have headroom to bump it up. Because very often when it's a UI heavy game and you want UI to be your hero, you make everything big and cool. But then what you end up with is just an equally cool. You have no juxtaposition and no contrast to make something big.
Yeah.
So that's something we've tried really hard to do differently in this game, maybe to some other reference games we played or like early games we've made, like making sure that we have more ebb and flow in the UI sounds as well.
Nice.
And then it's basically about the rest of the UI design is more about finding a vocabulary. So all of the core is basically the sampling of a single book and interacting with that book, because that was an effective way of designing it, was just like If we keep it to that thing and what you do with that thing, but interacting with it in many different ways, you can get many sounds out of it, but it still stays within the same palette. That worked out really well. That's a good thing you can try with your projects.
Yeah, and then really start super low and then bring it up whenever it was justified, as opposed to let's start super high and then tone it down.
Yeah,
because it's all about that additive experience that you will not hear until you're fully committed to the gameplay, to the game session. And that's the risk that happens immediately once you design things in a vacuum, and once you're not looking into how this sound is going to play in relationship to everything else that is happening all the time.
Right.
Oh, actually, this is a little trick. I don't know if and someone tell me if I'm lying here, but since filters are additive, that means that you can actually remove them as well, because you can put the RTPC in negative.
Yeah.
So what we're doing with 3D things on the map is that based on your camera perspective, when it's center screen, we remove some of the built-in filters.
Ah, yeah, nice.
So to make the thing you're looking at come a little bit more in focus and be a little bit emphasized without mixing it super loud, we can just like let it pop in a little bit more, like just a little bit. So again, it's one of those, like, there is a tool here for filtering stuff, but there's a secondary function, which is you can remove the filter, which is a behavior that we can then use to our advantage in designing the experience of the game. That's why I wanted to point out before that they were additive, because that means that you can subtract as well.
Yeah, and we did add a feature in, I think it might be the next version of Wwise. So starting in 24.1, where you can change the filter behavior from the way that you're used to, which is summing all values, to having a limit.
Oh,
so
nice.
Coming soon, but again, like the simplicity of the way that you're leveraging the way Wwise works with filters, and by default is set up to work, means that you can reach for that negative filter, and it will give you that effect that you want.
And it's something that ability has been available, and the camera cone has been available for a long time, and everyone has it, and you might as well use it, and it's super powerful. So go nuts, It's again amazing. One of those things that everyone has at their fingertips, regardless of budget or size of project.
Well, this is fun to watch and great to hear how that unfolds during gameplay.
So now, as you hear, orchestral soundtrack comes in, and hopefully you didn't notice why or how or when the solo is stopped, because it was at an opportune moment at the end of a phrase. Which is very interesting, dealing with this type of music that has completely different vocabulary to Western music. Like finding where in that setting a phrase ends is an adventure on its own. But the idea is then that, it's as if that person stopped playing in your little movie of your little play session, and now you're reminded that you're in this romantic, game with this linear soundtrack that you love.
That's perfect.
So yeah.
I'm not an expert at playing our games. Less on this. I want to know more. So one thing we do as well is that when the orchestral soundtrack comes in, we let that take the space. So we actually lower the ambience a bit.
Of course.
Based on the volume of the soundtrack. So now, ambience comes in a little bit, and then...
It's almost a little bit of HDR without being HDR, sort of.
Exactly. A more malleable and slow-moving thing.
Yeah.
Because some players playing our game might, shift very quickly, things might happen very quickly, some will play it slow, so we sort of have to put in a comfortable time buffer to how we change things to not make the experience jarring. And it's the same with, like you saw, shifting context and shifting perspectives up and down as well.
Yeah.
I don't really have much more on my list of things I'd like to talk about. Are there any more questions, or do you have any more questions?
Oh my goodness, I'm just glad to be landing here at the end of that presentation with a little bit of gameplay. I think we can pull the focus back and wrap it up. And wow, just a gift to be able to hear what you've been working on across this project. And again, as we've talked, iterating across the years of Paradox and these titles that, share similarities, but each time you reach for something just a little bit further. I can't wait to give the immersive side of this a try, because I think this is a new frontier, and I'm glad to hear that you felt a kind of intuition based on your experience in games and what is represented in game engines, that this positional precision just gave you what you need to experiment, and Wwise had tools that you could reach for to paint these pictures in a way that really supports the gameplay experience for folks who, like you said, your players are highly invested in these experiences. So thanks so much for bringing all of that knowledge here today.
Thanks for having us. And like we said in the beginning, feel free to reach out if you have questions, concerns, comments, or whatnot. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to talk more at some other point, either with you guys or at conventions, or wherever we might meet up. Reach out, and we're happy to meet up with anyone.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be here, and thank you for dealing with us for this long. In Paradox time frames, this is probably just starting up the tutorial, so we could probably keep on going. But it's also a good time to to start rounding up, and we can't wait to show you more in the future.
Amazing. Well, again, thanks for your time. This is Wwise Up on Air. We bring these folks and their experience to try and surface the way people are working with Wwise and with interactive audio across the industry. So thanks for coming, and thanks for being part of that. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Yeah.